Bonjour.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Government of Morocco, so I'm going to chair this first roundtable devoted to Europe, Africa-Europe, and I'm happy to see one of our best friends online, the Secretary of State for the Sea in Lisbon, Portugal. So everybody is going to work on that issue of the relation between Africa and Europe. We have 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is short, so all of you have to be the most accurate and shorter as possible. And I'll leave the floor to Raphaël Danglade, who is the lead portfolio manager, Climate and Development Africa-Europe Foundation. Raphaël, thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. Excellencies, all protocol observed. Let me thank you for being here this morning after such a welcoming opening yesterday and inspiring speeches. I'd also like to welcome you all today, and in particular the co-chairs of the Africa-Europe Strategy Group on Ocean Governance, Ambassador Nancy Kareguitou and Pascal Lamy. We are all here today to discuss how to bridge the Africa-Europe agenda on ocean governance and blue economy, understanding that the next 18 months, as mentioned yesterday, will lead us towards the 3rd UN Ocean Conference in Nice. These 18 months are now an instrumental period in driving the global agenda on ocean, and we very much hope that this roundtable can contribute in paving the way towards this objective. At least, this is the purpose of the Africa-Europe Strategy Group on Ocean Governance, an initiative led by the European Commission in partnership with the African Union Commission and implemented by the Africa-Europe Foundation. We are delighted to co-host this session with the summit organizers and again warmly welcome you to this roundtable discussion. I will now turn over to the co-chairs of the strategy group for them to outline their vision and the key ingredients to make the partnership work in practice. On that note, let me thank them for their participation today and for driving a mutually beneficial vision for the partnership. This meeting will then be co-facilitated with Thomas S. Bernard, who serves as Senior Fellow for the Africa-Europe Foundation on Ocean. Ambassador Nancy Kareguitou, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Raphael. Excellencies, distinguished participants, a very good morning to you. Let me start by saying how honored I am to be here in this very instrumental gathering, and looking forward to the outcomes and the outputs. And thank you very much, the government of the Kingdom of Morocco, for this opportunity. Let me start by saying that the shared seascapes between and around Africa and Europe provide a very strong basis for the development of a coordinated strategy across our two continents, and also point out that it's a very opportune time to elevate the ocean and blue economy, both politically and financially, because the sector represents a very strategic domain of cooperation which is not yet central to the Africa-European Union dialogue, but one which we believe has immense potential. Now, the oceans are not only the largest ecosystem in the world, but also a huge economic system, and ocean governance and the blue economy are at the heart of very strong economies, climate change mitigation, and restoration and preservation of biodiversity. An Africa-Europe partnership and collaboration has the potential to yield a wider reservoir of knowledge and research capacities in which are the best tools for the management and conservation of the oceans. Africa and Europe working together in partnership and collaboration could therefore drive the transformation of biodiversity, multilateral systems, with one area being two areas of strategic importance. And for this, I just need to take the example of the BBNJ, which creates large-scale marine protected areas in the high seas, as well as rules for conduct of environmental impact assessments in the high seas. And I believe that, and we believe as a strategy group, that working together, Africa and Europe could drive the much needed transformation of global multilateral systems, beginning, of course, with the ratification and early entry into force of the BBNJ. So based on this knowledge, we have come up with 3 core areas, or rather priorities, for capacity sharing between the 2 continents. The first one being the one of the issue of fisheries management, from the perspective of adding greater transparency to the system and contributing to the fight against illegal fishing activities, while increasing the collection of data and knowledge around fishing stocks. We're looking at more stakeholder engagement, technology and data infrastructure that is enhancing transparency through deployment of technology such as satellite monitoring systems, automatic identification systems, and any interventions that are aimed at increasing data collection and knowledge about fish stocks, and also revision of policies and regulations, and capacity building and training. We are also looking to work as partners on science observation, policy, and data exchange by establishing cross-continental networks of knowledge hubs and building on the best that EU and AU centers of excellence can offer. In this, we're looking to identify and establish partnerships and networks, capacity building and training in order to enhance capacity of those institutions, particularly those in Africa, by providing training programs, mentorship, and technical assistance, pairing them with European partners. Lastly is to identify projects of common interests, starting with marine protected areas and sharing best practices to accelerate the 30 by 30 objective and associated community benefits. So we feel that by adopting these actions, Europe and Africa can effectively collaborate on projects of common interest with a focus on marine protected areas, and in so doing, sharing the best practices, accelerating progress, and promoting community benefits, which are set to contribute to the conservation and sustainable use of marine and coastal resources in both continents. Thank you.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Good morning, all. I will be speaking in French. Nancy speaks in English. I speak in French. We have decided to share the task load between chairs. I will obviously not repeat what has been said.
Just to tell you a few things on what the Africa-Europe Foundation, which recently, through 3 different organizations that actually came together to build the foundation, Mobile, the Friends of Europe, which is actually consecrated to European integration, and one which is the NGO of our friend, Bono. And these 3 organizations actually submitted to European authorities as well as African authorities. That is the European Union and also Commission and the African Union Commission. And so we have a project that consists to actually go further in cooperation between Europe and Africa with regards to the practical institutional mechanism. That is the Euro-African Summit that takes place. in the regular periods where we come up with often long declarations. Let's be frank amongst each ourselves, not all the time. Sometimes we follow these with some effects. So two ideas. First of all, to have the declaration, but it's even better if we can follow these up with actions, and that this could be the case for independent bodies to be interested in evaluating the implementation of everything that has been decided on between the European and African authorities. It is going to be a first mission of this Africa-Europe Foundation. And secondly, it would be good to associate this partnership principally to have it the principal vector of development and from the European Union towards the African continent, and to try to change how things are done. And it will be important for our structure to actually associate with this partnership and also with other official authorities like civil society organizations, companies, academic authorities, and try to adopt a model like what we call the multi-stakeholder approach. This idea flourished, and the authorities from both sides were in agreement to confide in this foundation the mandate to evaluate this cooperation regularly, and also to actually establish partnerships in a certain number of sectors like agriculture, energy, environment, and recently the issue of oceans, and this is why we created this group that we have today the privilege of co-presiding. The idea is to give priority of our actions, what we call amongst each other, what we call impact-related or impactful partnerships. So we are not just here to meet, we are not just at a place where we're going to think and define and reflect on the big things for the year. We are in some sort of an incubator. We are a laboratory that would allow us to have field initiatives that would be deployed positively. And this, I would like to indicate a certain number of points on which we would be focusing. So we have questions of fishing, sustainable fishing, and we also have two partners in the North and the South Mediterranean Ocean. We also have the question of protection. So protection for environmental reasons and also scientific reasons, scientific issues with regards to the African continent. We have a certain number of scientific center of excellences that could be linked up to work with the sister institutions in the European continent. We can talk about carbon capture, and also be it marine carbon capture, or even with regards to coastal transport, or even port activities. So I will not repeat many of these. I would like to emphasize the spirit or the mindset with which we're working. We are not here to just come up with declarations. We are here to try to do concrete projects. And this being said, this will lead to cooperation that we have initiated. And so the positions of the European and African authorities internationally, notably in terms of international negotiation with regards to the plastic treaties that we're going to try to coordinate our positions that could differ, and it's perfectly legitimate, but with regards to the different reasons for our project, we spoke about this yesterday evening. We're going to do our best to ensure that the ratification of these high seas treaties are actually done quickly enough, because be it in Europe or in Africa, we actually signing and also the ratification is quite necessary, and this would allow us to obtain the benefits for which these treaties have been actually enacted. And so, once again, it's a question of partnership, cooperation on the field, and not just coming up with declarations. And I would like to conclude in saying this, because all what we could do in the discussions that would follow, it would be to actually orient us towards projects, not ideas, but projects. Projects would be welcome. Our project basket is not full, so we're going to do this in the coming weeks, including having to listen to what you have to tell us this morning, and also choose priorities. Of course, prioritize projects that have a higher level of feasibility, a higher chance of feasibility. So as much as possible, let's try to give this morning's conversation a practical and concrete dimension to see what we can do together, what we are doing well, what we are not doing well, what are we not doing enough, and what we can do better. This is what I expect of us for today's meeting. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal. I will now give the floor to Thomas, and I'd like to repeat again that this is just the start of a process, and that we look forward to this roundtable meeting again in the next 18 months. Thomas, the floor is yours.
And thank you to the co-chairs. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. I think yesterday was already a very, very strong introduction to the discussion of today. I cannot sort of imagine a better crowd and sort of better minds around the table today to actually look into the future. I think, Pascal, you just say we're not a think tank, and I could not agree more. What we are, though, is probably an action tank. It's something very much focused towards solutions, towards action, because indeed, and again, yesterday we've talked about it, we don't have so much time left to actually be on the right tracks. Again, I think, Pascal, yesterday you've mentioned that it took us 20 years to arrive, or to sort of come from the knowledge on the issue of harmful subsidies on fisheries to an actual agreement. We don't have 20 years now left to actually sort of come to action and deliver impact now for ocean. Now, I think what a very, very opportune moment and place to actually, of course, organize this gathering today in Tanger, in Morocco, and on the African continent. The African continent is certainly a blue continent. And as much as, for instance, you've just also mentioned the power of the cooperation and strong collaboration between Africa and Europe for the ratification of the BBNG treaty that indeed can change the world, truth is that same angle can be applied to everything that relates to ocean and impact. When Europe and Africa can really team up and put their strengths and will together, I do very much believe, I know that it can change the world. And this is nothing less than why we are here. And so without further ado, I think let's start the discussion. But first and foremost, I'd like to invite Shalina Vicheva, the Director General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries at the European Commission. Your Excellency, from the perspective of the European Union and European Commission, how can the ocean partnership between Europe and Africa become a central pillar for the relationship? What legacy will the current EU political cycle leave to the next one, starting, of course, next year in 2024, and in particular in relation to ocean governance and blue economy with the cooperation, of course, with the African continent? Please, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Good morning to everyone. And I will start with thanks first to the co-chairs, but also Africa-Europe Foundation, and of course to our hosts from Morocco. A very warm welcome yesterday as well. We managed to taste some of the delicacies of the country and to see some of the art, so thank you very much. Thomas, on your points related to how to develop a real hub of tools and ways to work with Africa, probably I will come to three elements. And the first one is partnership. We would not like to use anymore the word relationship, because relationship is a bit shallow. It is normally how we behave, how we connect to each other. The true partnership means that we have to team up, we have to work together. And this is much harder to achieve, but we are achieving it because of, as I said yesterday, our shared geography, history, and common interest. And this is the second point that is crucial in order to have our work, joint work together meaningful. This is mutual interest, and the ocean is by default our mutual interest. If we look at the Mediterranean, it is our shared legacy from the previous generations of the status of this sea and what we are going to leave to the next generation. So this is a huge responsibility to work together on the healthiness of the Mediterranean Sea. And then the third point, and I take inspiration from what you've said, Tuma, action. That's why I think that the third keyword here is solutions, solutions that are based on concrete joint work between the two continents. That, of course, requires open dialogue, experience sharing, and much more than that. So partnership is the key and first word that I would like to highlight. Then you're asking about legacy. It's a bit too early because we have still a full year of the mandate of this college, but still probably because indeed each and every college has its own political cycle. But I can already highlight a number of milestones, and I would start by saying that the current political cycle with the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, it was a very symbolic step that she started her mandate with a visit. Her first visit was to Africa. It was to Addis Ababa. And this is symbolic. We know that anyone that takes power, it is very important where the first visit will be. And that was followed by a number of very important actions. We have adopted a new European Union Africa strategy. It's a renewed strategy in which ocean governance and blue economy are very high on the agenda. We have also designed a new tool which we call Global Gateway, which is very much a Team Europe exercise. This is the largest global investment program with a package of grants and investments worth of 150 billion euro for Africa. The Global Gateway supports quality infrastructures that are enabling the economic development of Africa, and many of these are related to the ocean. Let's just think about ports. We also adopted a new financial instrument named Global Europe, and out of 30 national multi-annual indicative programs, because this is how we work with each and every country with multi-annual indicative programs, 22 contain as a priority of economic development blue economy, and 10 of them fisheries component, very much in tune of what Nancy and Pascal were telling us before. And I would like to continue on something that I mentioned yesterday, maritime security, that is a major enabler of blue economy and sustainable use of the ocean and sustainability in general of the ocean. This is with this regard that we are dealing in a number of regional ocean programs for Africa. And for these regional programs where cooperation is at the heart, for these regional programs we allocate 180 million. And I will mention these regional programs because it will be interesting for each and everyone that comes from Africa to know what the opportunities are to cooperate between the two continents at regional level. And we have the West Africa one, the Blue Benguela Current, the Western Indian Ocean, Central Africa, and the last one, Safe Seas for Africa, where, as I've said, maritime security is at the core. Our action goes beyond financial support, because normally Europe is perceived with the big donorship, with the many grants and economic investment that we offer. But beyond that, we support the overall framework in which we cooperate. And this is the new partnership agreement that was just signed, for example, with the OACPS, the Organization of the Caribbean, African, and Pacific countries. So this wider framework of cooperation, for the first time, mentions blue economy and ocean governance as a top priority. And not only that, in each of the 3 regional programs or protocols that are part of the OACPS partnership, we have again ocean governance as part of it. This is not just a symbol, this is a framework for very deep cooperation and partnership in this area. We are championing a number of initiatives, especially in marine protection, which is very dear to the European Union. I've mentioned about the Green Deal, and the blue element in there is absolutely essential. We work, for example, in the BBNJ negotiations, the European Union was playing a key role together with the African countries. And now I will join all the narratives from yesterday and today. Our primary objective is ratification, and after that, even more complex task of implementation. And we have really committed as European Union that we are going to help this process with all our forces, not just financing, but technical exchange, technical work, knowledge and science, everything it takes. I would like to mention also our leading role as European Union in regional fisheries management organizations, again coming back to the priority that was highlighted by Nancy and Pascal. We participate in 18 of these regional fisheries management organizations, and our primary goal is sustainable stocks, sustainable marine resources, and of course, on the basis of that, what we can sustainably use, and how we can influence fisheries practices and fisheries policies so that we can take only what is above what we can sustainably, below what we can sustainably fish. Another tool that we use, and this is a tool that we basically implement in Africa, are the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreements. And we worked very hard in this political cycle on a number of these fisheries partnership agreements. A very key component in these partnerships is the sectoral support, where we allocate money for science, for control, for sustainable management of fishery stocks. So again, very relevant and an important building block on which we can work further. And of course, I cannot miss the opportunity to say that the European Union is a champion of the fight against illegal, unreported and unregulated fisheries. We started our policy 10 years ago, and it took us not 20, but 10 years to establish a policy that is now on the top political agendas of everyone. We have managed to come in a global alliance together with the US and many other countries, but all started with the policy of the European Union. And we know, I'm not going to come, why this fight is so important. It's not just that it is for food security and sustainable management of the marine resources, but also it is for the fair level playing field of all the communities and honest fishers in the coastal areas. And because we're talking about concrete actions, I will conclude by mentioning two, I just picked them, two concrete actions that we have embarked on. These are two flagship initiatives, and the first one is exactly the setting up of the Africa-Europe Ocean Strategic Group with our co-chairs, Nancy and Pascal, and I have to thank very much because it is very important, the personalities. If the personalities are engaged, committed, and well recognized and knowledgeable of an initiative, that is the key to the success. So thank you very much. We are really looking forward to your report. It is going to be launched in the COP28. I've seen already the draft, very meaningful with a lot of recommendations inside. And the second initiative is a very concrete business initiative for Africa, a matchmaking event we started last year with the first edition in the Seychelles between African entrepreneurs, and believe me, there are so many absolutely committed and fantastic pictures from Africa. And we matched this initiative, individual initiative of each and every entrepreneur with the investment community. We are going to repeat this initiative next year, somewhere end of June, the beginning of July, and this time it will take place in Kenya. Now it goes really overwhelmingly high because of the success last year. I believe that each and everyone around the table can be an ambassador, that this initiative becomes not just one-off event throughout the year, but throughout the year a process and a true business environment for entrepreneurship in blue economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director General. I think the few words I want to pick from what you just say is partnership, mutual interest, and action. And I think those are certainly why and sort of the core of the reason why we're here today. And so without further ado, now I'd like to invite Amel Hamza Shafé to give a bit of an African regional perspective. Amel, as a member of the Africa-Europe Strategy Group on Ocean Governance and of course as Vice President of the IOC UNESCO Ocean Decade Task Force on African and Adjacent Island States, could you please share with us your priorities and how do you think the Africa-Europe partnership could actually sort of help move the needle on those? Thank you so much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. I was thinking about the title I could give to my presentation. As teacher, we give titles. So the title I choose for this round table is Telling Stories and Sharing Experiences for Africa and Europe. As you can see that when we tell stories, we target the subconscious mind. So we are more impactful. That's why I will tell you a few stories about this question. So I divide my stories into different keywords. The first one is pollution effects. The second is pollution monitoring. The third, aquaculture. It is a solution, but also a big problem. Blue entrepreneurship and ocean literacy. We are within the task force working on other topics and also on these topics. So. But just briefly, I would like to introduce the task force activity. It was established in October 2022. We are multi-stakeholders, civil society, intergovernmental organization, private sector, and also different institutions. Our mandate is to oversee and promote the implementation of Africa roadmap and enhance enabling environments. There are 9 objectives in the roadmap. We are 14 individual members and 6 institutional members, and some of them are present here in the meeting. We are 1 chair and 2 vice chairs. So our role is to is in communication and outreach, creating and building partnership, and I consider that with the Africa-Europe Foundation, it's a huge opportunity to think about what are the possible mechanisms to establish bridges and partnership. Monitoring, evaluation and coordination, of course, and resource mobilization. So there are 9 priorities, but now in the last meeting we identified 4 priorities and 4 working groups. The first is about sustainable management of marine resources. The second, climate change and marine biodiversity. tackling ocean pollution for enhanced human health and extreme events and disaster risk reduction. About the different topics I was talking about, the pollution effects, as it was told yesterday, it's an evidence that pollution is impacting the health of marine organisms, but also the health of the human health. And we have scientific evidence about the impact of pollution on human health, on reproduction, on cancer disease, and so on. The first recommendation we can make in this point is about the necessity of implementing monitoring programs for countries. There are already existing monitoring program, efficient monitoring program in France, in the United States of America, in Tunisia also. So there are few best practices, and perhaps we will establish a handbook of best practices, blue best practices, that will be shared by different countries, and we will be able to use. It could inspire different countries. About aquaculture, so offshore aquaculture is a solution. For example, in Tunisia, we developed since many years offshore aquaculture, but it is impacting the seabed. So we need to have a sustainable offshore aquaculture. And for that, we need to have best practices also. About blue entrepreneurship, this is one of the topics I am passionate about. As in Africa, in Europe, we are facing unemployment challenges. So it's very important to think in a different way and to change the mindset of education at the universities. Because generally we are giving information, knowledge, we are sharing knowledge, but we don't give the entrepreneurship mindset, which is very well developed in the United States of America. That's why, for example, in Tunisia, we have had an experience with Massachusetts Institute of Technology in which we are teaching the entrepreneurship to our students, how you can turn your ideas into business, and to create the statue of student entrepreneur, level 1, level 2, level 3. These are also best practices to be shared at the African level, I don't know, perhaps at the European level also. So for entrepreneurship, we developed a concept named combining technical and soft skills to turn ideas into business. So we work with students, it's a very practical issue, it's not, c'est pas de la théorie. We train students, researchers, during 3 days. They work on their skills, on their technical skills, on their values, and then they connect with their multiple intelligences also, and then they draw their project and they make the pitch. So it is a very practical matter. I experienced this at different French universities and also at my university. So this is an example that could be used, could inspire other countries. The fifth story is about ocean literacy and the importance of raising the awareness about oceans. There are many initiatives, and I think that ocean literacy is one of the most successful topics in the UN decade. And we need to start, as I said in Bizerte, since the kindergarten, by telling stories about the marine environment, the importance of marine organisms, and the problem linked to pollution and the impact of pollution. So ocean literacy could be at the level of formal education and informal education. There are different ways, there are tools. Now with IOC UNESCO, there are many initiatives, many events related to ocean literacy. So coming back to the question, I consider that from a practical point of view, what I suggest and what I suggested to during the last meeting of the task force is to invite Africa-Europe Foundation to be a partner in the satellite event we will organize, the task force will organize in Barcelona in April 2024. So Africa-Europe Foundation is welcome, is more than welcome to be our partner. And if other people, other institutions are interested to take part of this this event, we will be happy. So we can also establish, work on a handbook of Bleue best practices. It could be electronic, I don't know, interactive, whatever. Education. I think that we can do many interesting tasks related to education, promoting online learning, SPOOK, MOOC, and all the different possibilities IT tools gave us to share more knowledge, to share more information about seas, how we can promote different initiatives and share them with the maximum number of people. So I consider that we are complementary, Africa and Europe. We have a long story. Again, I'm talking about stories, a long history, long story. And we will find, I think, that during this day and perhaps making the follow-up, we will have the opportunity to find issues and mechanisms, practical mechanism to implement Blue entrepreneurship, ocean literacy, monitoring program, aquaculture. In Africa, many countries are doing very, very good initiatives. There are success stories, but we need to learn about these success stories and duplicate the success stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amel. I think you make a very, very important point about Blue entrepreneurship in particular. And indeed, the African continent is full of entrepreneurs. It's absolutely mind-boggling, actually, when you go on the coast, on the sea. It's just they are everywhere. No, indeed, what's lacking, and I cannot agree more, is this entrepreneurship supporting organization mechanism to help them grow and unleash really the potential of this Blue entrepreneurship. In fact, there's just one organization currently that exists on the African continent, which is called Ocean Hub Africa. And indeed, we've been partnering with them for the past few years in organizing the Blue Entrepreneurship Summit, the Ocean Innovation Africa Summit, which is growing. And it's just a very strong reflection and illustration of how important that is. But I think there is, and it's not that I think, I know, and we all know here that there is so much more that could be done. And I think this is a very, very exciting and promising avenue. And also to actually also sort of bring together the entrepreneurs from Europe and Africa, because there is a lot of capacity sharing that can be done, knowledge and expertise and experience that can be shared, and really sort of joint ventures that can be established by them. So I can only agree that this is very exciting. Now, I hope Jose Maria Costa is online. Can we check if he can hear us?
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Dear Secretary of State of Maritime Affairs from Portugal, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Of course, it would have been an honor to have you with us in person, but in the meantime, I think Zoom will do. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry. From the perspective of Portugal, which of course has demonstrated extensive and very strong leadership, obviously with the organization of the last UN Ocean Conference, but even more recently with the organization of the Sustainable Blue Economy Investment Forum. I'd love to hear from you, what concrete initiative of mutual interest do you think could be rolled out to enhance cooperation with the African continent? Secretary of State, please, over to you.
Excellences, chers amis des océans, toutes les protocoles. Bonjour.
Hello. Thank you, and good morning to all the participants, and thanks to the organizers of the Blue Africa Summit for inviting me to take part in this event. You know, the history between relations between Portugal and several African partners is one essential element of our cooperation policy. So it actually shows that Portugal and its bilateral activities has the capacity and the will to support and facilitate relationships between both continents after a first edition, which was a success on the 20th to 22nd during the United Nations Conference on Oceans in Lisbon, Portugal, has actually received large representation from African origin during the second edition of this forum this year. This forum brought together more than 600 participants, operators, and moderators from the world over, from different origins, participating in 5 different panels under the following themes. The ocean is a source of clean and sustainable energy. The ocean, a catalyst of the bioeconomy. Ocean is a source of energy. Ocean and the ocean, and also the protected marine zones. These were the topics that were treated. We hope that the bilateral participation of African participants would even be stronger, taking into consideration for what would be done during the week for blue economy, and we will do everything to actually achieve these resolutions. We've organized bilateral sessions with several African countries that actually share common aspirations with regards to the development when it comes to sustainable blue economy development. And we also have amongst our partners in the Lusophone area, we also have other partners outside of the Lusophone network, like Angola, we have Ghana, Senegal, etc. And also we can actually emphasize that we have experience with regards to transferring these experiences to the partners, as well as national partnerships, and also to consolidate the leadership of Portugal when it comes to international governance of oceans. Outside of the transfer of knowledge, Portugal is also looking for new means of actually getting in touch with these partners from Africa to actually consecrate funds for the development of sustainable blue economies in their countries. An important example when it comes to the Committee of Lusophone countries, these networks of transformation of environmental investment in Portugal and Cape Verde are already envisaging that a part of the debt should be consecrated or attributed to sustainable blue economy with regards to questions linked to oceans. And also for the international community, Portugal has been contacted by other countries and also organizations with regards to the perspectives and also the will to even take part in and also lead partnership meetings on blue economy. So the international recognition of our work is a direct consequence of not only our diplomatic relations when it comes to international institutions, but also to see how our actions on the field, where Portugal has actually developed training sessions for capacity building whilst elaborating policies and strategies to protect the seas. And so we also associated with Angola when it comes to capacity building destined to actually enhance the skills of functionaries with regards to questions linked to the oceans in Mozambique, when it comes to the development of a national satellite for the sea and also blue economy. Finally, I am pleased to inform you that in the next 2 years, Portugal will co-preside an initiative with Mauritania in 2024 and also in Tunisia in 2025. And this initiative will be that of dialogue between these countries within the Mediterranean region, including 5 members of the European Union: France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and 7 African states: Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, and Tunisia. And these states will be able to work together on their common interests for the region. And also the Portuguese leadership is looking to contribute towards the development of the blue economy. So thank you for the invitation, and I wish you all excellent deliberations. Thank you. I would like to also thank the Secretary of State that really did an excellent work in the country in regards to the Portuguese dimension, and I hope that we would be able to welcome him amongst us and in Tanger during this Blue Africa Summit.
Secretary of State, I think those are extremely important points. The leadership of Portugal on blue economy and ocean at large. Now, I've been told that we don't have so much time left, so I'm just going to request the next speakers to really keep as brief as possible with your intervention. But of course, you know, we talk about ocean governance, blue economy, blue entrepreneurship. Ultimately, it all comes down to local communities, indigenous people, and really sort of local stakeholders. Mamadou Sidibé, as the curator of National Parks, director of Community Marine Protected Areas of Senegal, I'd love to hear from you. Senegal is an example when it comes to locally managed marine areas, or otherwise known as LMMAs. What recommendation do you have for scaling up these LMMAs and ensuring that communities, as well as the environment, truly benefit from greater protection and restoration of the natural ecosystems and the natural capital that they depend on and can thrive on, and of course sort of support and promote their sustainable management? Mamadou, over to you. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. I would like to speak in the name of the Minister of Sustainable Development, who has mandated me to speak indeed to the example of Senegal and, of course, of a cooperation that the EU and other actors can be inspired to act for the preservation of coastal biodiversity. We tend to look at communities as simple beneficiaries, which is the first mistake. Communities are actors, are the first managers of this coastal and marine biodiversity. And Senegal has truly understood this and has used a novel approach of these relationships towards the conservation of coastal and marine biodiversity. The state accompanies communities and provides them with the required support to enable them to provide sustainable management of their resources. What needs to be understood is that this preservation is inefficient without the implication of the community, who are backed by important networks. The management of biodiversity relies heavily on networking, which is why I would like to invite the EU to visit, see, and accept that communities are much more than beneficiaries, but are actually the main managers. Second conclusion is that this preservation can only be done through networking, which plays an important role in pooling resources, but also achieving effective, sustainable resources management, which is why it is crucial that the EU and Africa be able to implement a network for the preservation of marine and coastal biodiversity. As part of the blue economy, these are important tools for the implementation of the blue economy strategy. It is crucial that we bear in mind that we need to reach a common understanding of blue economy. if you're looking at economies in its strict definition, we're looking at the destruction of resources. But you need a holistic approach to economy. And we have in Senegal a model for conservation that allows individuals and communities to enjoy these resources without threatening them. This is the simple yet strong message I wanted to share with the world community for both Africa and the European Union in the name of the Senegalese stakeholders. Thank you. Thank you very much, Colonel.
And indeed that ultimately indigenous people and local communities are not beneficiaries. They are the actors of the blue future, and they are the best placed stakeholders to really deliver impact on the ground. And you also have made a very important point that blue economy can still mean a lot of different things depending on who we talk to. And here we should very much focus on a blue economy that can generate positive outcomes for the people, for nature, for climate, what we call today a regenerative blue economy. And I think this is a very, very strong message. And now I cannot just not take this opportunity to, of course, sort of remind the audience that under the leadership of Comoros and President Azali himself was launched during the Africa Climate Summit, the Access Africa panel on the development and acceleration of a regenerative blue economy, which exactly responds and echo what you've just mentioned, Colonel. So I think here there is a tremendous opportunity also to build on that, to build on the partnership between Africa and Europe towards the acceleration of such a blue economy. Now, Sir Alejandro Abellan Garcia de Diego, I'd like to invite you to take the floor as Director General for Coordination of the Single Market and other European policies at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Union and Cooperation of Spain. From the perspective of Spain, which currently holds the EU presidency of the Council, how can Spain and the continent of Africa work together better to tap into the immense potential of the blue economy, and again, here a true sustainable regenerative blue economy, and what immediate opportunities do you see for greater socio-economic and environmental cooperation? Your Excellency, over to you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Thomas. Et tout d'abord, mes félicitations.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers for this very interesting event, which focuses on very topical subjects, and also like to thank this fantastic region for hosting this event, as this location is particularly well suited. When it comes to the Spanish presidency, I think in this context, at the end of the political cycle, and the presidency of the Spain at the Council is very important. But we must take into account the political cycle of elections next year for the nomination of the new EU Commission. So it is therefore important to highlight the role of the Spanish presidency in this context, which will lead to political initiatives which need to be advanced as much as possible, or finalized if possible, to avoid a slowdown in the institutional policies given the election calendar. So our two main priorities is the ecological and energy transition, which is a priority for the Spanish presidency in line with European policies. But the second priority is the neighborhood policy of the EU. I think both the ecological and energy transition and, on the other side, the neighborhood policy provides us with a very favorable framework for the implementation of projects, namely cooperation cooperation projects when it comes to the blue economy. When we speak of Europe and Africa cooperation, I think we need to remember that there are multiple levels. That first of international cooperation, and we spoke just before of the Treaty on the Conservation of Marine Biodiversity and BNJJs, which are a very good example of the actions that need to be undertaken and multiplied to preserve marine biodiversity, but in also many other fields which are part of the blue economy. But I also think we need to highlight the importance of the bilateral EU and Africa cooperation. Mrs. Vicheva, mentioned the tools for international cooperation, which enjoys a very important budget in which the financing is available for multiple projects focusing on sustainability, social, economic, and environmental sustainability. I always insist that all three go together. You can't just separate one from the other. And you have to focus on the prosperity of the economic sustainability that can finance public goods, such as the conservation of freedom, for example. So, as part of this neighborhood policy, I think we should highlight some examples. We mentioned a program for the sustainable ocean resources for West Africa. I think I also mentioned the preservation of marine diversity in Bengala, which was also mentioned just before and enjoys a €45 million budget. And I think we also need to speak of the national action plans, annual action plans in particular for Mauritania, for example, where a project has been implemented to enhance the sustainability of fisheries and the strengthening of value chains and the governance of the fishing sector in Mauritania, which enjoys a €16 million budget. So given these, alongside these budget instruments, there are also elements of encounters, of meeting, such as this one here, which is a forum to exchange between Africa and Europe, to exchange practices, opinions, information, and which is particularly well led by the Africa-Europe Foundation, and which plays a crucial role as it provides a forum for stakeholders of the blue economy, be they institutionals or private, or just private, to accelerate projects for the economy. So my congratulations again to the Europe-Africa Foundation, who are here amongst us. Thank you again. So ultimately, I think we also need to speak also of bilateral programs as part of the EU strategies. We have three strategies for the seas: the Atlantic, the Black Sea, and the West Med, which gathers not only European actors but also African actors from the southern or the northern bank of the Mediterranean, which focuses on practical projects such as combating illegal and non-declared fishing, which was a topic of this strategy. And WestMed has recently produced a declaration on the blue economy, which is important and provides us with a framework and cause for hope to envisage how the stakeholders can gather and work together to forward the blue economy in the Western Mediterranean basin. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the collaboration with the Mediterranean Union, where there is a strong collaboration between Europe and Africa. For example, the partnerships for the Blue Mediterranean, which I believe is an interesting program as it provides an example of how Europe and Africa can and should work together for the future of the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you make some very important point. First, of course, the one on IUU, which is indeed a very, very important challenge that a strong cooperation between both continents can really sort of move the needle. You also highlight the importance of having a true sustainable blue economy, and a blue economy can really be built on sustainability from an environmental, from a social, from, of course, an economic perspective. And I think this is a very, very also sort of point that you've made. Now, I'd love to invite Comoros to actually sort of take the floor. Of course, Comoros currently holds the chairmanship of the African Union. I've actually witnessed an amazing leadership from the President Azali himself, directly from the Union of Comoros, really on that space, on ocean governance and on blue economy. Said Salim, Director General from the National Agency of Maritime Affairs, ANAM. What do you think in the context of this sort of chairmanship of the African Union from Comoros? What legacy do you see sort of Comoros leaving as the current AU chair to the next chair of the African Union? And how do you think international partners, of course including Europe, could rally behind the leadership and the effort made by the President Azali? Thank you so much. Over to you.
Merci beaucoup, le co-président.
Thank you very much to the co-chair. And I see this opportunity to thank you for the warm welcome of this African country.
Which has been reserved to us for this General Assembly. So for the question you asked, I would say that Comoro Island has an ambition with regards to blue economy under the guidance of His Excellency President Azali Assoumani, who is the current President of the African Union. Since 2018, we've had a framework strategy for a national policy on blue economy. This policy integrates a regional dynamic. Last month, in June, the President organized a ministerial conference on blue economy and the climate for the small states in Africa, or the island states in Africa. And this came up with recommendations which were actually transmitted to the Nairobi Africa Climate Week, which took place in Nairobi, and the international bodies were able to take a look at the specificities of these small island states. In all this, we also organized in August 2023 a regional conference on blue economy and also sustainable tourism, with the aim of engaging the youth so that they actually get imbibed with natural resources, especially when it comes to fisheries and aquaculture. These are revenue creation resources and also that of the creation of employment. So for September 2, under the auspices of His Excellency the President, we organized a conference, a regional conference with the support of the French Embassy on science, under the theme, the integration of science and arts in blue economy. And we realized that the sea is the future of the Indian Ocean for this conference. And that is why I said that there is a citation from an English farmer who says that the person that controls the sea controls commerce, and the person that controls commerce controls the riches of the world. And the ones that actually controls the riches of the world actually controls human existence. So we have this wonderful wealth or source of wealth which we need to protect to the benefit of humanity, and also to protect these for the benefit of the continental states that have not had the opportunity to actually have a sea. And that is why I remember this sentence which was made by King Hassan II of Morocco during a conference on the maritime rights. He mentioned that, and I'll cite it, instead of talking about maritime rights, it is time to talk preserving the rights of the sea, not just talking about maritime rights. So he was talking to the leaders of Africa. So for us, integration in Morocco, which is an interface between Africa and the European Union, we ask that we know that we received lots of procedures from the European Union, and these procedures were not visible when it comes to the development programs, even amongst our populations too. But with regards to what was said today by the co-president, Madame Nasir Pascal, as well as directors, who said that this partnerships are satisfying because we are a new generation that have the destinies of our countries in our hands. We are not like those that came before us. We want to have simplified procedures with visibility with regards to the European Union. I'll give you an example. Comoro Islands, especially with regards to fisheries sector. About 30 years ago, we used to actually attribute about 45 licenses to European companies, licenses for fishing, and what we were receiving as revenue was not actually enough for the development of our country. The transfers that were actually given to us were not actually in tune or in correspondence with how much fishes were actually taken from our shores. So today, I believe that this is a language that will be clear and would allow us to have win-win partnerships so that we can have a transfer of skills, especially at the sectoral level for the fisher folk and also for the support of our maritime economy. Thank you very much for your attention.
I can only salute the extremely amazing, really, leadership of Comoros. We often call those small island developing states or seeds, but in fact, a lot of us rather call them BOS, the big ocean states, and you clearly sort of made a name for yourself there, I think. Sorry, just a second. Okay, wonderful. So we're trying to sort of revamp a bit sort of the agenda because there is a bit of a timing constraints. We have the honor, of course, to have Catherine Chabot with us today in the room as member of the Parliament, but of course as a world-recognized sailor. Catherine, I'd love to sort of hear from you what legacy the ocean will leave to the next EU political cycle, and what remains to be done in the context of the next 18 months to ramp up cooperation with Africa on the ocean. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Merci pour votre question. Bonjour à tous.
Thank you for your question. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank really Morocco and the Blue Season for inviting us and for the great welcome. I will testify as a marine expert, as a European EU deputy, and try to bring my contribution as member of the strategic committee or commission created by Africa-Europe Foundation. I'd like actually to remind us that the ocean is under pressure today. I'd like to testify on two aspects that are at the origin of my commitments in the ocean. 30 years ago, I saw waste in the Atlantic when I crossed first the Atlantic 30 years ago. And nobody was talking about it then. When yesterday, Mr. Lamin reminded us that we need time. It took us 20 years before we start getting interested and focusing on this problem. And this topic is quite essential that we should tackle at the same time as we develop and work for the development of our blue economy on the African continent and in Europe. The second testimony, it's the climate changes. I crossed again the Atlantic individually during a trip called the road to Rome. And I can tell you that it's not, the climate is no longer functioning as we have it in books. We had the Daniel storm that swept away the coastal city of Derna, I think, in Libya, was the best example. We have never seen this the last decades. This storm was a major one, and today when we take the sea, we are quite concerned because there are quite sudden phenomena in the sea, and we have to tackle this climate, global warming and pollution and in oceans, and we need to have the ambition to develop our blue economy. Another testimony dating back to 20 years ago when I started my fight for the ocean. And I have to say that things are progressing slowly. But when we look backward, we see that we are quite moving forward. And as the Perpetual Secretary said yesterday, if our reading of Africa is limited, I can assure you, or even disappoint you, our reading for Europe and for France, although a large maritime country, is also limited. It's been 20 years that we work to try to progressively turn our focus to the sea, just like our Minister of the Sea back then, Jean-Louis Bourdeau, launched the effort for the sea in France. Everybody was using the sentence of L'Éric Darbarly, the big sailman, said, what were the French thinking of when they forgot about the sea? So we collectively had this movement to go back to the sea, to the ocean. And it's in the heart of my commitment in the EU Parliament. And for 4 years now, I've been trying to increase the level of adoption of oceanic topics at my level. Now, let's talk about the heritage. I can testify and say that the EU Commission is working on the topic in order to make it progress, and I can testify that the main heritages, which is also the heritage of the previous mandate, will be, my dear Lamy and Jean-Pierre Ponce, it will be to regenerate oceans, seas and rivers, and we'll have to implement this schedule. We'll have to start to implement it with leading projects that I support, and I hope that it will also launch some call for interest, Mrs. Charlina, because we will have to accelerate its implementation, in my opinion, in the future months. In this heritage, we have worked on the implementation of the Green Deal, as you mentioned yesterday and earlier this morning. This Green Deal on which we have to strengthen the blue aspect, and I think that in the future years we will have to really work not only on a green-blue deal, but also on a real blue deal, a blue compact for the EU that will also cover policies of the EU along with developing countries and all the other stakeholders, including within the framework of the international negotiations that you pilot so well, actually. This blue deal, this green deal, was developed in different texts and acts, and I worked on it. For instance, I worked on the text of maritime pollution, decarbonating maritime transport, And this is one of my prides because I managed to include and put back sails on our trade ships and commercial ships. On nature restoration law, here again, we increase the level of the ocean in our texts and its presence, and we have to go further with the larger stakes that are quite important but that need to be developed further. Is the integration of the blue carbon in our laws and climate policies. Since we don't have any defenders of the seas, forest seas, like we have defenders of forests, land forests, and we have to include blue development in our climate conversations and dialogues, and the EU should focus on it in the future weeks during the COP. I can talk about many other topics, namely the action of the EU within the framework of the large negotiations with the BBNJ and the deals on plastic. We already talked about this. We will also have during the future months. So now my four suggestions, Mr. Chair. Lamy, for the future months. I have 4 of them actually. And I think, and as you suggested, we have to put them and consider them as projects. One of the major challenges we collectively have, be it in Africa or in Europe, it's to really integrate our public policies. What does it mean, integrated policies? It means that when we develop our ports, our marine energies, our more sustainable fisheries, at the same time, we will have, as I said earlier, to cover the reduction of waste thrown in the sea and the regeneration of the ecosystems, as well as a better knowledge of the marine fields. So I suggest a first project here. And I here bounce back on the intervention of Mr. Mamadou Sidibé. I think that the project should be territorial. And I did have the opportunity to make a couple of journeys to Senegal, and I did see the great initiatives of the community marine fields. I think that if we want to restore the mangrove is our most precious asset on our coastlines and marine spaces, and the mangroves, we have communities that are, as you said, Mr. CDB, the managers. They are the managers. And I still have exchanges with one of the women who is president of the Women Association, because she has a project to get rid of the plastic pollution from the mangrove. If we want to preserve this mangrove so as it feeds the communities, we will have to depollute it. So I think that it's one of the topics that we could integrate here. Second suggestion, and pardon me, around the maritime communities areas, we would address topics on climate, biodiversity, circular economy, etc., and of course of fishing and sustainable aquaculture, because women there have hives and produce delicious honey on the coastline. For ports, we'll have to develop energies. Apologies, Catherine, we won't necessarily have the time. I'm summarizing the 3 last suggestions. Apologies. All right, I conclude. So we have ports. That will be development zones for marine energies. And there's also decarbonating maritime transport. Why not? Because we managed to build our decarbonated ships. Why not build them in partnership with Africa as well? There is a great project of future ships, humanity ships. It's a great project. Around participatory science, we have to think about developing educative maritime areas, as we did in France and in Europe. And finally, let's recognize collectively that the ocean is our common good. There is only one ocean, and we have to include the marine experts in our initiatives. And thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I would like to inform you that unfortunately we only have 2 minutes left and many speakers. I will give the floor immediately to Mrs. Alessandra Cinci, who represents the President of the Mediterranean Union. Alessandra, could you tell us what were the levers that arose the blue economy in the Mediterranean basin? Thank you.
Many thanks to everybody. It's a great pleasure actually to be here with you today. So thank you to the host, to Saison Bleue, to the EU Africa Foundation for this opportunity. As you know, the Mediterranean as interface between EU and Europe has been progressing very much on blue economy. The dossier has become really a pillar for cooperation, for technical cooperation in the region. And this already in 2015, when the 43 Euro-Mediterranean countries have decided actually to agree on a ministerial declaration precisely on blue economy. It was very important at the time that it was the very same countries deciding to address blue economy, which as concept was still not there. We're talking about 2015, and which has progressively evolved over time. As we said, it's a mental shift that has impacted a lot the region. So in 2015, we had this first ministerial declaration, and we had a renewed political commitment in 2021, when indeed the 43 countries, by consensus, have been agreeing in expanding enormously the areas of cooperation. I'd like actually to refer to the fact that among the very many areas that were already mentioned yesterday, we go indeed from governance to aquaculture and fisheries, to renewable energy, to ports, to all what has been said so far, including very important aspects as indeed skills, career, education, and maritime clusters. I'd like actually to emphasize that this partnership goes beyond the countries that are bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So what is very important and was remarked today is the stake, the interest that actually brings this convergence. So very interestingly as well, and it was mentioned also by the previous speaker, is that within this regional partnership, which has brought together not only the countries but stakeholders at all levels, so that everybody has been able, through a very solid mechanism led by the co-president, to involve many different organizations, academia, NGOs, private sector, and so on, all have been contributing and are contributing to this process according to their capacity, mandate, and resources. So by now we have a very solid mechanism that is actually very important mechanism to share within this EU-African initiative that just is being launched, as indeed potential best practice to be inspired to. I'd like also to mention that it's not just a co-decision where we have, indeed countries coming together, stakeholders contributing, but indeed it's evolving towards a co-management. It's clear that nobody can do things on their own. So on the very many different dossiers, it was mentioned yesterday, the importance of cross-sectoriality, the importance of the multi-level from indeed regional to national. Each one is indeed contributing. So two important points also in our mechanism is that each of the different countries is represented according to its own priority. So we have many different ministries and sectors represented. Each country has brought in their priority. We go from Ministry of Transport to Ministry of Economics, Planning, Environment. So this has ensured really cross-fertility also, not just within the countries themselves, but within the countries of the region at many different levels. We do use a stable working group. We have periodic meetings of the UFM stakeholders, and I'll go in a minute on that. We have indeed a specific Mediterranean platform, and I'd like also to mention that within this important regional collaboration, there are also advanced partnerships, as the one that was mentioned, indeed, like WestMed, which is in addition also based on a rotating presidency by which indeed each country can have hands-on on the dossier themselves. We are accompanied by a roadmap, so this is a very important element, a very operational roadmap. that defines the priority we work on. We just come from a set of priority address like ports, maritime spatial planning, indeed value chains. So we are now moving more towards
thank you, Alexandra.
Sustainable. I'll just finish. Let me just conclude with an important message. Indeed, on the 19th and 20th of February, we do have a stakeholders conference in Athens. I'd like actually to mention that this is not open only to the Mediterranean community, but of course to a larger community of representative organizations interested in the Mediterranean experience. There is a lot that has been done. There is a lot to learn. So we invite you all to be there. We will be also in cooperation with the mission Restore Our Ocean and the Mediterranean Lighthouse, of course, at the UNESCO conference that takes place in Barcelona, and again also at COP28. So it's a great pleasure actually to having had the opportunity to share all this, but of course we remain available for many more details, and of course due to time constraints cannot be mentioned now. Thank you very much.
So I know that we have very little time left, so I'm going to ask the next speakers just to keep your intervention to 1 minute, if it's possible. I know, I'm sorry, it's very little. I'd love to hear from you, Geneviève Pons, from as CEO and Vice Chair of the Europe de l'Or. And of course, as a member of the Africa-Europe Strategy Group on Ocean Governance, and of course the CEO and Chair of the Jacques Delors Institute, what do you consider as priorities for Europe and Africa, and as they move towards a key year for international treaty and for the preparation of UNOC 3? Thank you. Over to you.
Merci beaucoup. Donc je vais parler.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for inviting me. I will be very short. I will speak from both sides, as I am involved in a European mission and institute called Starfish. But I was born in Tunisia, which is from this dual point of view that I want to speak of European and African priorities in the upcoming priorities, especially in the context of UNOC SWIFT, the UN Conference on Oceans. So these priorities pertain mostly to, when it comes to governance, to ensure sufficient ratification on the Treaty on the High Seas and a negotiated plastics treaty. And I suggest 3 principles for the success on the plastics treaty. First principle, partnership based on common but differentiated responsibility. We are the main causes of pollution. We have both a duty and the means to repair to address the situation. To my mind, this was the key condition for the success of BBGM Treaty on High Seas, and will be the key condition of the success of the Plastics Treaty. Second point, we must combine the principles and a pragmatic approach by working around local experiences. And in this case, I will speak to Tunisian experiences. Catherine was shocked by plastic in high seas. I was shocked by plastics on the most beautiful beaches of my childhood. What happens in Tunisia? There is traditional knowledge and traditional trades that have been collecting litters for a long time and are now, this litter is now being valorized. 7,000 tons of plastic litter have been recycled into beautiful products for the high fashion industry. And there are traditional knowledge and know-how that can be leveraged. And finally, the sharing of best practices, especially when it comes to education. As part of the Starfish project, we have great projects for the toddlers, Martina, the starfish, and for teenagers, Pepper the robot, and these are easily shared. The authors are willing to do so. Thank you very much. We have
floor to Ibrahim from Guyana. I know that you wanted to intervene, so please, over to you.
Okay. Bonjour à tous. C'est un grand...
Good morning, everybody. It's a great honor for us to take part in this first edition of the Blue Africa Summit, as well as in this roundtable. I'd like to thank first Moroccan authorities and congratulate the members of the organizational committee of this forum who decided to offer us this direct exchange environment before acting for a sustainable blue economy. Regarding the agenda approaches, we remind here that the Guinea Republic has put blue economy as one of its priorities in their intermediary program adopted by the government. And I remind you that we are amidst a transition based on the 14th SDG by 2030, aiming at preserving and sustainably use oceans, seas, and maritime resources sustainably. Guinea has launched consultations with the different public and private actors to promote blue economy through the elaboration of a national blue strategy accompanied with a roadmap supported by UNDP. This strategy will also allow our country to present its potential to blue economy and put the water at the service of the West African and Guinean services. And Guinea is the water tank of Western Africa, so we are planning to have a project on the coastline in order to highlight the emerging and technological projects and innovative projects and focus on the industry and reduce the environmental impact and put in place a procedure for evaluation and monitoring and good management of the sea and ocean in Guinea. In order to succeed, a national platform of blue economy is being created. In the specific field of fisheries, a strategic fishery plan 2023-2027 was adopted in order to considerably enhance the contribution of the fishery industry and aquaculture in the economic and social development, in food security, in the reduction of poverty, and in preserving the environment. There is no secret for everybody, and we all know that preserving the oceans will allow us to have a sustainable fishery and the livelihood of the fishermen with the practices of this generation-to-generation heritage. In Guinea, we produce over 400,000 tons sold on local markets with over 85,000 people and over 850,000 direct employment. This is to tell you that it constitutes one of the most important industries to fight against poverty and the bad nutrition in our country. And it also creates employment. Due to this importance, it is one of the priorities of our government, and it has the support of technical and financial partners. My country, Guinea, through the Department of Sea and Fisheries, has launched reforms aiming at sustainably use marine resources and develop the knowledge and capacities by enhancing the health of oceans. And this is how I want to introduce the vision of my country regarding the different pillars on which we are focusing on. So we are trying to work on equitable programs to secure large ports. We will highlight on principles of fighting illegal maritime fishing, fight against maritime pollution, create a maritime and coastal environment that is necessary to preserve ecosystems and biodiversity, reinforce sub-regional and regional cooperation in order to ensure the development and capacity building in order to preserve ecosystems and continue to keep away negative exploitation. This is why, for our African and European countries and international institutions, it is necessary to appropriately react for the needs of our populations in order to face the risks and threats in maritime African spaces. It will be a mistake to wait. it is necessarily to act now for resilient and healthy oceans. Thank you very much.
Again, I think we have very, very little time left. So yesterday I know that Rémy said that he thought he was the only banker in the room. In fact, there was at least one other, Tostan Till. I'd love to give you the floor just 1 minute, because ultimately all of this can really happen if we manage to unlock the funding required to actually make it happen. Please enlighten us. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. 4 quick points. One, we heard yesterday from Rémy Rioux of the Cartagena effort on ocean positive action of the development finance institutions. That is the finance pathway to enforce, increase the efforts from the development finance world, and we should all support it. Point 2, we heard about the importance of entrepreneurship in Africa. We have a wonderful process in Europe called Blue Invest that supports entrepreneurship. It links it with impact funds. We need to innovate around bringing that even more to Africa, use these expertise and abilities to roll that out as an equity investment opportunity. 3, on governance, we heard about the importance of these new international treaties. I was delighted to be part of the discussions on Article 52 for the new BBNJ agreement. It has a special fund as part of the structure. We now need to innovate about putting that special fund in place. So it's about the institutional structure, it's about cooperation between African group and Europe on how the modalities of this fund can work to deliver on the economy. And that links me to point 4. Innovation, implementation around these various treaties means we need new technologies, we need to use data and AI. We have the opportunity to create an integrated ocean data infrastructure that services all of these 3 treaties, from fisheries to BBNJ to plastics, and we need to jointly develop this in a way that all the countries around Africa have full access and immediate access to remote sensing data, which would then also allow them to develop their own data industries. And so it is a positive win for the sustainable blue economy, but also for the development in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Torsten. Those are very, very important, very 4 clear points that we should also take forward. I'd like to invite, last but not least, the representative from Mauritania, Ahmed Louvlil El Vadil. Please, over to you.
Merci.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. It's a great pleasure for me to take part in this first edition of the Blue Africa Summit, which gives us the opportunity to work today across 2 days to talk about the different issues pertaining to maritime domain between now and 2030. I would like to thank the organizers and all those who actually contributed towards organizing this wonderful day in Tanger. Mauritania is a coastal country with a lot of fishes, and also we have protected coastal zones like Dowling and also that of Châteaupoul. The community of fisher folk actually live in the coastal areas in Bandaga, and they actually fish in perfect harmony with the environment. So the maritime resources are considerable. Regards to the Ministry of in this aspect of respect of the environment, and also the maritime community places an important emphasis on employment and also to protect the environment. And we also talk about the exploration in terms of gas and petrol, and also to try to conserve the density of the existing species. And so when it comes to government actions, in July 2022, they have a policy when it comes to fisheries, a maritime sector planning for 2024. This letter is integrated management of maritime spaces in the coastal and littoral spaces, and also the blue economy is really important. It's really a tool that is adapted to promote the promotion of the blue economy when it comes to the maritime space. And that is the elaboration of an occupation plan of the maritime spaces in sync with the initiated initiatives. So the Department of Fisheries is called to actually play a vital role with regards to the implementation of a national observatory for the blue economy, and also the promotion of the blue economy strategy in Mauritania in conjunction with other departments concerned. These activities are going to be pushed to influence global development and also blue economy strategically, by having blue economy in Mauritania to actually inform the actors to actually become aware of the importance of blue economy in Mauritania. These incentives prepare the ministerial departments to actually coordinate in terms of blue economy, and also innovation and also sustainability with regards to the management of plastic waste, to actually help us to actually take advantage of different experiences actually lived outside to actually manage these plastic waste. So first of all, need to actually mention the commitment of Mauritania with regards to blue economy. We are now have the West Med initiative with Malta and also with Portugal. Mauritania has launched an initiative with the Arab League, and the President of the Republic will be present to actually emphasize on blue economy as a solution for food security and energy security. Actually, we are present in this summit to ensure that Mauritania actually takes part as a sign of the importance we actually accord to blue economy. And I thank you.
The representative from Togo, Larry Batoupen, would like to also intervene, so please, the floor is yours. Please keep it to 2 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup, je ne vais pas.
Thank you very much. I will not be very long. I would like to first of all thank the organizers of this forum, and also say thank you for everything we've heard relatively with regards to partnership between Africa and Europe with the aim of developing a blue economy. You all know the position of Togo in line with a blue economy, because in 2007, Togo organized the summit of heads of state and government on the safety and security, maritime safety and security and development in Africa, and it was a huge success. And today we think that the Lomé Charter, which has not yet been ratified, should be actually take into consideration all the different legal, environmental, economic, and other parts that deal with blue economy in Africa. And I would like to solicit all of you that during this forum, that this should be a recommendation addressed to all the countries and also the international organizations in order for them to act with regards to ratification of this convention or this charter, which is very dear to our country. Another important point which I would like to say in conclusion is that the organization of the Youth for Blue Economy in Africa is organizing in March 2024 a forum for the youth in Africa on this topic of sustainable blue economy, and also we will talk about clandestine immigration under the high auspices of the President of Togo. And we would like to thank you for the countries that will be present, all the different organizations that will be present, to actually lift high the notion of blue economy in order to be able to actually get the youth accustomed to this particular topic, which I think creates employment and also creates resilience, and which stops our youth from migrating towards Europe illegally. And this would, in a way, allow them to actually stay in our countries and develop our countries. Thank you.
We're just getting started here, so it's a bit of a shame, of course, that we don't have the whole day, but it is what it is, and I'm actually really looking forward for the next panels. But before we go there, I'd love to invite the French ambassador for the ocean and the pole to make the transition. There you go.
Voilà, merci le Maroc.
So, thank you, Morocco. Long live Tangiers. Thank you to all of you. Thomas Bernard, thank you for launching this first meeting of the Africa-Europe Foundation, which opens our event. But as you know, Morocco has two facades, one on the Mediterranean and one on the Atlantic, as the King of His Majesty, the King of Morocco, highlighted. It's an important facade, as it will allow for a better connection of the Sahel region, and the fact that Morocco is hosting this event shows how important this topic is for the kingdom. I'd like now to introduce the head. I would like to highlight how the participants here have had such a high profile. The president of Starfish, Fedra in particular, as well as the representative of the UN Conference on the Oceans, who will be leading this meeting on ocean knowledge and climate. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just want to remind the mantra of Pascal Lamy.
Mantra.
On est là pour accélérer ce mantra. La connaissance, la conscience, la politique et l'action.
Oui,
On est là pour accélérer
excellent.
accélérer un peu le rythme, mais aussi, je rappelle l'équation pour laquelle nous sommes là aussi, faire en sorte que la protection et la gouvernance.
For the protection and resilience. And this is the topic of today's roundtable. There's a microphone interfering.
Sur ce que nous aurons.
And we will be taking stock of what we've been able to do.
Olivier Poivre d'Arvor. The base of the triangle is science and finance, and the top of the triangle is multilateral governance. And the Blue Africa Summit, which is initiated and organized for the first time here in Morocco, Monsieur le Secrétaire Perpétuel, is at the base and the heart of this triangle. So congratulations to you, to Morocco, for organizing this first circle, and we hope that it's going to turn more. Fedra, à toi.
Thank you. No, this is not working. So thanks a lot for inviting us to moderate this very insightful session. So our format is thought to be dynamic and engaging. What it means that you will all have 3 minutes to wave your narrative through insights, suggestion, recommendation, and bringing also your vision. So it means that Ashok and I will be your timekeepers, advising you when you have just 1 minute left to conclude your narrative.
After 3 minutes, we'll ring the bell, and I have a stick to beat.
More or less, yes. And after one first group of subgroup of session within the same round table, we will stop and open to question from the floor. Please, an advice, this is just not a formality, this is an opportunity. We are building the bridge from personal, individual insight to lead to a collective dialogue. So it is really the space in which we can dialogue each other and go through a common vision for Africa and beyond.
Thank you. Alors, nous allons commencer le premier groupe.
We will be launching the first group of the second round table. We will be speaking of erosion and possible solutions. And we will be hearing from 4 speakers, the idea being that everybody can partake. Federica, the floor is yours.
We will have Madame Ella Mahmoud Ali, professeure d'océanographie à l'Université du Canal de Suez en Égypte, and spécialisée en écologie du phytoplancton.
Mrs. Mohammed Ali, Elhama Mahmoud Ali.
Experience through this session, and sorry for the translation, and I will manage to keep it separate. And then we will invite Mr. Vladimir Ribainin, that I think is online on Zoom, ancien secrétaire exécutif de la Commission océanographique intergouvernementale, sous-directeur général UNESCO. And then we'll ask Madame Corinne Almeida, professeure et directrice université technique de l'Atlantique, to join the discussion, and expert on changement climatique et la gestion adaptée
in climate change and soil management.
Thierry Verdieu, présidente directrice générale, Institut de recherche pour le développement.
Madame Valérie de l'Université de Marseille, the University of Marseille, and the ex-minister for the sea, Mr. Bouchael El-Moumni, president of the Abdelmadek Sadi University in Morocco.
Your narrative, I will just present you a guiding question that is related to which are the strategies that can we implement to mitigate the impacts of climate change on our ocean, including, of course, all the impacts that we very nicely described this morning and yesterday. That means sea level rise, erosion, and extreme phenomena, and all the issues that you presented in your agendas. So please, Madame Helma Maudi Ali, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I really feel honored to be with you these couple of days, and I really want to thank very much the organizer from Morocco to this event. Everything is going very extremely perfect, except one challenge I have facing because of the wide spread of the French language, which I very poor in it. Yes, there is interpretation and which allow English translation, but I'm still miss lots of conversation. For example, this was in the gala last night, but I was pleased to understand when they said bon appetit. Going on with my short speech, I need first to express my gratitude to speak here as an African for an event seeking for prosperity of the continent. And it is really a promising hub opening a new strong bridge between Europe and Africa. I know we concern several challenges that face our ocean, the three oceans in Africa, between Africa and Europe, including pollution, biodiversity loss, plastic pollution, wastes, insecurity, and others, transboundary issues. But I really want to focus here on climate change, which is fairly mentioned yesterday and today. And I think it is one of the global top challenges facing oceans and coastal environment. As a researcher and the university staff specialized in oceanography, in addition to my role as a lead author and contributing lead author for the IPCC latest report that include a separate chapter on the Mediterranean and another one for Africa, which is a fortune for all of us. As you know all, our continent is responsible for only a fraction of global greenhouse gases emissions. However, it suffers disproportionately from climate change that extremely harms food security, economy, and ecosystems as well. It also pushes displacement, migration, and worsen the conflict caused by scarcity. Africa is
Madam, 1 minute left.
Okay. As you know, Africa is an island that include like 37 coastal countries, which hosts 30,000 kilometer coasts. We need to work hard to protect this wide area of the coast. And I think that the latest Danielle that struck Libya in September the last, and would have thousands of dead and missed people. The Mediterranean is a boiling sea with multiple dynamics, and we need national efforts and international management and cooperation for its stability and prosperity. Most of the countries in Africa are facing several and various climate impacts and risks as well. Sea level rise, for example, in Egypt and Benin and Ivory Coast. We have South Africa suffer from bad weathers. We have West Africa have huge and long frequency of drought. We have lowland areas that suffer from subsidence and even saltwater intrusions, like the Nile Delta in Egypt and the Volta Delta in Ghana. Again, we are talking about extreme events like extreme head infection diseases. I remember that last 20 years there is more than 300 million affected by heat events. 40% of them are heat-related deaths.
Thank you, Madam.
I only would like to conclude with one more important concept, which I really would like to interpret during the panel discussions in the morning, which is about the climate resilient development. I'm really seeking to have a strategy or even a policy for the regional and or even the Europe-African partnership to seek for this strategy, climate resilient development, which is a process of implementing greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptation measures to support sustainable development of all the country. I really prepared like a PowerPoint slide, but I'm not sure if there any time to present.
Thanks a lot. Madam, you bring very well the message, and I think that we can have also the question and answer session to go more into details for this. Thanks a lot.
Merci.
Very interesting.
While we're getting ready to host the visit on a Zoom of Vladimir Ryabinin, Vladimir, avec ta permission, laisse-moi te présenter.
Vladimir, allow me to introduce yourself to our friends. So, Vladimir, you are the Executive Secretary of the Oceanographic Intergovernmental Commission. You are Deputy Director General at UNESCO. You are Polyvalent Secretary on climate issues and impact on oceans with your experience as an oceanographer, globally with global renown, meteorologist and climatologist as well. Vladimir, you created many mathematical models for the ocean, wind, waves. How could we use these models in order to anticipate and mitigate impacts of climate changes on marine biodiversity? It's gonna be part of the insights you share with us in French, English, or in one of the working UN languages. Thank you, Vladimir. Although he's not with us, we can applaud him.
Blushing now after that kind introduction. I have to say the following. First of all, we need to recognize the gravity of the year that we are living in. And it's not only because of the dramatic events that are happening around Gaza and other places. I have to say that this year is the year of El Niño, and the usual temperature. Usually in the years of El Niño, the temperature is increasing, the average temperature, and this is now happening dramatically, 0.4 degrees higher than the previous temperatures in the observed period. This is 1/4 of the whole 1.5 degree interval that we wanted not to cross by the end of the century, and we just increased by 0.4 of a degree just in 1 year. So that's, it's of course not the average temperature for several years, but nevertheless, this is what is happening. I have only to also to say that Sustainable Development Goal on the ocean is the least funded Sustainable Development Goals among all 17. So that's the situation. It's a dramatic situation, and we need to change the paradigm. We have elements in the legislation now. We have Convention on Climate, Convention on Biodiversity. There's excellent targets. We have now the new High Seas Treaty on Biodiversity beyond areas of national jurisdiction. So, but the situation in the ocean is, and as many other domains, is the following. So ocean is a sick patient with many diseases, and there are many doctors that are treating the patient. Doctors have to speak to each other. So I think this is a shock. Also, one of the tasks that you can achieve in the Nice conference. Now, to make sure that the doctors start to speak to each other. And the doctors will have to come up with a plan of curing the patient, not just treating the patient. The plan can be based and should be based on science. There is a fantastic opportunity to capitalize on the decade of ocean science for sustainable development. And because it's changing the capacity of science to deliver, there are also some plans of managing the ocean. And this management is climate smart. So that management would include also some protection from sea level rise. And of course, there are different players. There are governments, there is also private sector. I saw some representatives of private sector in the room. And the common plan of acting in the ocean that would be started to develop in the result of the Nice conference decision, uniting the interest of the private sector that is now opening really. This is no greenwashing in the people who understand what is happening in the ocean. So there is this fantastic possibility. I don't want to go into larger details. I want to throw at you that big thing. We can really develop a plan for the ocean.
And you have 1 minute, Vladimir. You have 1 minute.
And sorry, Yashok?
You have 1 minute, Vladimir.
Yeah, actually, I'm almost finished because that is my plea, and the road to that map would be through the decade conference in Barcelona in April, through the preparatory meeting that we all know. Ashok, I'm sure, spoke about this in Costa Rica, and then the plan should be unveiled, or at least a decision should be taken that we will develop this plan in Nice. That's all I wanted to say. I can say a bit more things about details, but I think this big idea should really be floating in the minds of people who take decisions. Many thanks for your attention and having me at the first Blue Africa Summit. Thanks, Morocco, and thanks to the citizens.
Formidable. Thank you so much, Vladimir.
Great. Thank you so much, Vladimir.
Fedra, our next speaker.
Yes, thanks a lot. I will ask Madame Corinne Almeida, professeur directrice Université Technique de l'Atlantique, she's an oceanographe biologique, expert dans l'écologie et la conservation des communautés corallines. Corinne, the floor is yours.
Sorry. So good morning to each one here, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Speaking about strategies to address climate change, particularly in the marine environment. The central point is regarding data collection to fit decisions. In this regard, we at the Atlantic Technical University, in the framework of the West African Science Center on Climate Change that is founded by the German Federal Ministry on Education and Research, we are training marine scientists from until now, and we had 3 batches of 13 West African countries. So we are in one of the main challenges is here in West Africa is to have huge drainage in marine science. There is a lack of scientists and marine scientists in our regions, a lack of infrastructures as well. So by this way, we are creating a great network of marine scientists. In few months, in few years, we will also upgrade, have another program on doctoral program on marine doctoral program. So by doing capacity building and to reinforce the infrastructure here, will be possible to have that produce this data. So as you know, the global ocean observation system is quite large, but it's not addressed completely West Africa.
Corinne, so 1 minute left.
Okay, so the main message is that we take the opportunity of having marine scientists in the area, and we are working huge to enlarge this group, to connect them, but also it would be nice they have opportunities to address the questions in their home countries before we leave them to go outside.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Formidable. On peut l'applaudir.
Magnificent. We can put our hands together for her. Thank you, Corinne. While she is getting ready to join us on Zoom, Valérie Verdier, the CEO of the Research Institute for Development based in Marseille. You are a biologist specialized in vegetal science. You have contributed in a significant manner to food safety. You are developing solutions. We need them. The solutions are based on interdisciplinary aspects. Corinne, we see you. You're a beautiful photographer. We don't see you in live on Zoom. I hope that you can hear us. Corinne? Oh, Valérie, sorry. The floor is yours. I can hear you very well. I hope you can see me as well. Perfectly, yes.
Merci beaucoup pour cette introduction. Je suis profondément désolée de ne pas être avec vous aujourd'hui à Tanger. Un malheureux accident m'a retenu sur Marseille, mais je suis de l'autre côté de la rive, face à moi la mer, et donc je vous imagine juste en face. Donc comme j'ai très peu de temps, je voudrais faire passer quelques messages. Le premier, c'est que l'IRD, l'Institut de recherche pour le développement, est profondément mobilisé au travers de ces actions de recherche, de formation, d'innovation, comme vous l'avez dit, qui doivent conduire à des solutions pour tout ce qui est recherche sur les océans, la connaissance en fait des impacts de l'élévation du niveau de la mer sur les ressources océaniques, les ressources biologiques. Alors comment on le fait? C'est surtout ça l'IRD, c'est comment on le fait. C'est au travers d'un partenariat équitable, c'est-à-dire pleine réciprocité avec les communautés scientifiques, éducatives, politiques, civiles avec lesquelles nous travaillons, avec l'ensemble des pays partenaires avec lesquels nous sommes très étroitement impliqués dans la recherche. L'IRD, c'est 5 départements scientifiques et je dois dire, même si je suis une biologiste du secteur végétal, ces 5 secteurs sur lesquels nous travaillons, je ne vais pas tous les citer, mais écologie, biodiversité, les dynamiques des surfaces des continents, la santé, et un département qui est consacré aux océans, à la question des océans, climat et ressources. En fait, tout est très imbriqué. L'océan, c'est effectivement un continuum terre-mer important. Et donc, la manière dont on le fait, c'est une manière très interdisciplinaire. C'est aussi des communautés de savoir que nous mettons en place. C'est des espaces d'intelligence collective où on va discuter et réfléchir aux solutions qu'on peut apporter aux défis que représentent actuellement les océans. L'autre chose, c'est que, pour donner quelques chiffres, c'est 15 unités de recherche à l'IRD qui sont mobilisées aux océans. Ça représente à peu près 300 personnes. C'est aussi des dispositifs que nous co-construisons, notamment avec nos partenaires et essentiellement avec nos partenaires africains. Donc, dans le secteur des océans, nous avons à peu près 8 laboratoires mixtes internationaux qui sont co-construits ensemble. Je prends pour exemple, un laboratoire mixte international qui s'appelle Éclair et qui est basé au Sénégal et qui permet d'avancer sur la compréhension du rôle de l'océan, les cycles biogéochimiques, la variabilité du climat. Donc, c'est tout ça que nous co-construisons ensemble. Il ne faut pas oublier aussi que derrière la recherche, bien évidemment, il y a des solutions qui doivent construire aux innovations, qui doivent créer de l'emploi. Je l'ai entendu dans la première session. C'est extrêmement important qu'on soit aux côtés de nos jeunes et nos jeunes Africains pour aller vers des innovations qui peuvent effectivement générer ensuite start-up et entrepreneuriat. Et puis, je voudrais juste aussi, dans un autre message, c'est dire aussi que les pays côtiers du continent africain, ils vont être des acteurs centraux lors de la 3e conférence des Nations Unies sur l'océan qui aura lieu à Nice. L'Afrique, il faut le savoir, avec une population qui vit à moins de 50 km du littoral, une population qui doit doubler, elle est confrontée vraiment à des enjeux extrêmement importants. Et c'est là aussi où il est plus que jamais nécessaire de considérer les socio-écosystèmes littoraux et océaniques dans toute leur complexité et leur dimension multi-échelle. C'est vraiment, comme je l'ai dit, des interfaces, continents, zones côtières, zones économiques, sans oublier les îles. Et donc, c'est en cela que l'IRD souhaite renforcer bien évidemment son investissement dans la recherche. Pour cela, il faut des moyens et on se bagarre tous. Et merci à Monsieur l'ambassadeur Olivier Pavard pour l'investissement qu'il met à nos côtés pour justement qu'à l'échelle mondiale, il y a un investissement. Et comme l'a rappelé Vladimir, que l'investissement il porte sur les océans. On doit avancer beaucoup plus vite sur l'ODD 14 en particulier, pour conserver et exploiter de manière durable les océans. Donc,
merci.
l'IRD est là, même si je suis de l'autre côté de la rue, avec tout cet investissement, comme j'ai dit, dans la recherche, formation et innovation. Merci beaucoup pour votre écoute.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. On sait à quel point, Valérie, vous nourrissez la réflexion et l'action, et notamment, je me permets, de l'ambassadeur Olivier Poivre d'Arvor, et que l'IRD est très proche de nos travaux, de la task force que l'ambassadeur préside toutes les semaines pour construire cette UN Ocean Conference à Nice. Merci beaucoup. On peut l'applaudir.
Thanks. We are now moving to Professor Ricardo Serrao Santos, and former Ministry of the Maritime Affairs in Portugal. Professor Santos is really an expert of the marine ecosystem and marine biodiversity, so we look forward to know your insights and recommendations. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much. C'est un grand plaisir de...
It's a great pleasure for me to be here for the Blue Africa Summit. I would like to remind us that one of the most gratifying tasks in my life and one of the most worrying is with regards to my participation as a member of the European Parliament during the Parliamentary Assembly of the European Union, African, Caribbean and Pacific meetings that have a series of documents on oceans and also climate change. It is really worrying in two parts. In one part, the survey preview and also the difficulty in actually moving forward with the initiative report. On the other hand, because at the time, the leaders in the most powerful countries in the world actually denied the existence of climate change at that time. But the aspect of climate change is particularly significant in Africa, where the sea level rise and constitutes a huge problem for coastal countries like Mozambique, Egypt, Nigeria, and Senegal. And also we also have the celebration. And also these high sea levels are actually a threat to coastal infrastructure and other vital infrastructure. And so we have cyclones in some countries like Madagascar, Mozambique. So we should adopt an integrated approach on scientific research and also the elaboration of community-based policies to fill the different spaces or gaps when it comes to climate change in Africa, and also strengthen capacity regionally in terms of marine sciences and also in IT, and also to mitigate climate change consequences on these spaces. So we concentrate on this mitigation strategy. We need to recognize that the coastal communities need adaptation and resilience, and the development of infrastructure, which is a lot more resistant. And this is even for the vulnerable regions after the cyclone in 2019. Mozambique actually concentrated on building buildings that are a lot more resistant. So Egypt, they actually have an Atlantic buildings. So in Nigeria too, in Senegal too, we have Diamantio. These are examples, just as a lot of other countries in Africa are actually facing budgetary constraints. Financial aspect is crucial, and the international bodies will need to actually put in more efforts to mitigate climate change risk, and also on oceanography, and amongst other important sectors. And the road is difficult to ply, but there are still lots of opportunities. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you. We will continue with Mr. Bucha Mumni, President of the Abdel Malik Essadi University. You are an expert in oceanology and integrated management of coastal communities, and you're also an expert in climatology. And you have a national and international research projects with regards to climate change and the associated risk that we are talking about. So the floor is yours, please. Thank you. I'd like to thank you first, the organizers, the Royal Academy of Morocco, and so the Blue Africa Summit, and also the Blue Season on behalf of Madam Benzina. My colleague spoke about the impact of climate change on the misbalance between the oceans and the sea. I will not talk about the impact on the coastal lines and also the high sea level, and also on other infrastructure, even on roads, or even on invasive species that come from one region to the other. I would rather emphasize on Mediterranean Atlantic exchanges, since we are talking about this zone on the Gibraltar Strait. And so we would like to talk about this program financed by the European Union. And this program was MATTER, that is Mass Transfer and Ecosystem Response, MATTER. So this was since 1996 and 1999. At the time, this hadn't yet happened. So during this program, we put in place scientists who actually mentioned the importance of the Gibraltar Strait. Without the Gibraltar Strait, we will not have the Mediterranean aspect. So this becomes very weak with regards to the water, and they actually go through evaporation mechanism. So we have a laboratory that worked on samples of the Mediterranean Sea, and after this time we participated in several projects given the geographic situation of our university in the township Tuan Hosema, where we had 400 kilometers of coast. And so this scientific event that we're discussing today at a point in time were quite precise, coincided on the in the aftermath of the speech of His Majesty with regards to the coastal spaces, and still with an opening to the fellow African countries. Another point I would like to raise, we just have 1 minute. Okay. Second point is I would ask the organizers to think about the creation of an African Institute in science, rights, and blue economy, and also sea-based economy, and to develop all the different skills to actually safeguard and preserve this common heritage, which is the ocean. Thank you. Bravo. Thank you, Mr. President. So now, if you all agree, without transition, we'll go to the second part of this panel on science and technology to the benefit of the ocean. So we see the ocean as a solution to problems linked to the climate change challenges. So I can see our friend Pierre, and we're going to start Fedra, Madame Hamel, Sheffield University professor at
Université d'Espagne, Tunisie. Please, the floor is yours.
Oui, merci. Alors, c'est cette fois-ci.
Thank you very much. Let me seize the opportunity of having these 2 minutes to share with you quite concerning effects regarding pollution impact on our health and human health in general. In the literature, it is well established that the pollution has negative impacts on all organisms, fish, humans, or even in white polar bears that has some negative effects on his skin that were found. But what is it about the human being? It's a taboo topic, actually, because we tend to say yes for organisms, but for the human being, there's nothing. So we are denying the effects, but it's not the case, because the human being is in the top of this chain, and concentration of pollution aspects can affect as much human being as any other organisms. We are indeed affected by endocrine agents, anachlorys, plastics. All agents affect us, and the impact on human being are quite concerning. For instance, I give you a few examples. Maybe I will be scaring you, but infertility, spontaneous cancers, breast cancer, cancer of prostates and testicles, increase of rate of male babies, and weak concentration of spermatozoids. These are the effects of pollution on the human being. So we are here facing a major challenge. Of course, the impacts are here, but what could we do? And here I can bounce back to what I said earlier with the surveillance and monitoring programs. But it's not enough to observe the situation once organisms have disappeared and the species are not here anymore. We will have to put in place early alarm systems that will allow us to determine the pollution effects, even if the presence of pollution is very weak. We're talking about biopollution, biomarkers, for those who know them. So in monitoring programs, We have to choose the organisms that indicate pollution, and then we have to choose early alarm systems that will allow us to determine pollution effects, even if the levels are very low, and detect the effects on the cell and the molecule, so as we will have a reversible system while we can take decisions. Political decision makers and environmental experts will have data while they still have the time to react. I consider this is very important. We have to work on these aspects. That's it. Thank you. Great. Thank you. It's quite a passion. Thank you for maintaining this tempo, as we say in Italian. Mr. Pierre Balurel, you are CEO of Mercator Ocean Polytechnician and Oceanograph. Quite rare to mention it as a specialty. And you have with Mercator, you have the objective of offering us a forecast instrument to monitor oceans in the world. Thank you for your generosity, because you are transforming with France, that originated this initiative. International Mercator, an intergovernment agency that normally should be launched in June 2025 during the UN Ocean Conference. My dear Pierre, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. I'd like to start by warmly thanking the Moroccan authorities for the warm welcome and the organizers for the quality of the times we are sharing here. I'd like to make a suggestion. So as we build a digital version of the ocean, it will be a digital twin. We'll build it together. And we put here all we know at digital level about the ocean. I love this idea because there is a dynamic version of things. When we have access to this, we can make forecasts. We can go backward in time. We can establish scenery to understand. It's like moving from a book to cinema or a video game. So we'll start by transferring the knowledge and act consequently. The EU Commission was one of the first organizations to understand the necessity of massively invest in this, well before the states react. And today we have the capacity to have a first digital twin. And the Starfish mission goes further in order to deepen this issue. The second reason that for which I like this is data are mobile. It can be shared, and it goes very fast, and we can immediately share what we know with the others. There are some barriers that we try to overcome, like access rights. Everything is open. It's all open. The cost, it's all free of charge. The technique, we are trying to reduce the barriers, and we also have the knowledge barrier. Do we know what to do with these data? UNESCO, within the framework of the decade of ocean science, put on us the responsibility to create this center in order to share our information and create together an exchange of good practice. It's called Ocean Prediction. And I invite you to join this network in order to make sure that we can learn one from the other. And the third reason, my favorite one, and remember the blue note of the Perpetual Secretary yesterday, is that it's creative. Data is creative. It can be combined, mixed. It's harmonious. And we can mix data and create something new. By sharing the data, we create more information. So we move from the local to the global, and we will learn more. It's for this reason that we want to be able together to create this digital version of the ocean. 3 proposals, 1 minute, I'm done. In June 2025, for the UN Ocean Conference, let's meet there. We'll do 3 things. First, we create a large system that I talked about. We adhere to it. We share our data. We put at the disposal of everybody all of that. We'll do it. Everything is here. And we'll make sure that all your data will appear on this screen so as everybody use it. And then you can get back of the whole procedure and system. Then we create a virtuous governance, and this is what we're doing in the Blue Africa Summit, where we identify organizations, and under the auspices of Paul Arvor, Mercator Ocean is being transformed into an intergovernmental system, so as everybody can have the right partnership and involvement. And the third moment, I don't know how to do it this time, we need to have a system that works, to have a governance, and we have to know what to do with it and what services we'll put in place. So let's meet in Nice and let's define together the service. We talked about BBNG. We need assessment. We talked about plastic. We need to understand what will happen with this. Once the system is in place, what will we do together to start from local communities to cover the global needs? So let's meet in June 2025. Till then, let's work together. Thank you very much. Sorry for the last and effect every time we take the floor. It's just to remind us that we need to take the floor as little as possible. Fedra.
Monsieur Lala Touré, directeur géomatique et vice-président du réseau de professionnels africains de la géomatique, chargé d'intégrer les technologies géospatiales de l'enseignement et la recherche à l'océan, la gestion des ressources côtières. Please, Monsieur Touré, the floor is yours.
Here, not here.
It's not here. It's neither online.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Group number 3. If you agree, Ashok.
Vas-y.
So we changed the plan. We are not interacting with the question, fire question. We go through the.
Je propose qu'on fasse à la fin de ce.
I suggest that we take questions with the last group. We started 30 minutes late. We try to finish 15 minutes earlier. Now, Group 3, for protection of oceans and resources, we will focus on blue economy. It will be a good transition for this afternoon talks. And we'll start with Mr. Silila Said Salim, General Director of National Agency of Maritime Affairs, ANAH, from Comoros, which Comor President is in Tangier. And it's also the presidency of the African Union. Comoros, are you here? I think that he just left the Zoom meeting. So let's move forward. If he comes back, we give him the floor. Mrs. Vatusowa, Regional Manager of Coasts and Oceans Affairs in Madagascar. You have the floor, madam. You are here? Okay, good. You are an activist, a passionate activist for Madagascar fishermen. You received the Ripley Reward 2019. You were elected president of Mayare Network in 2020 and recognized amongst the 100 youngest ocean leaders in preservation in 2021. Vetosoa, you have the floor. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Actually, I had this little slide to share. I don't know if it can be shared still. Maybe you could start, because since we jumped to the... I worked for IFN, but at the same time I am ambassador of fishermen community in Madagascar. Here we go, it's here. Not working. So, I will just talk to you about local communities, because here we've been talking about technology, science, and all what we do. But I want to talk about these populations that are one of the poorest populations and most vulnerable to climate changes. And unfortunately, they don't have the necessary means, be it technical or financial means, to adapt to the impacts of climate changes. But at the same time, they don't have all the necessary information on the major stakes of climate changes. I wanted just to share this illustration showing what's happening in the sea, what we don't usually see. But if you talk about fishermen communities, I'd say that climate changes have an important impact on their livelihoods, on their food security, and the sea became dangerous for Madagascar fishermen. They complain because before they had 6 months of rain, now there are only 2 months and a half or 3 of rain, which is not allowing them to have enough fishery products. I won't mention all the impacts of climate changes on fishermen, but in general, these communities are vulnerable and strongly impacted. And I think that I will just talk here, or introduce this slide. I see that Torsten is here. And with IUCN, we have this project now to put in place a trust fund for the indigenous populations, because at this level it will be a solution that will help us mobilize the necessary financing to adopt an autonome approach where we will be able to assist them in terms of mitigation of to climate changes and capacity building, and to implement projects so as these local communities will cover their needs, since they have other needs than biodiversity and ecosystem protection. They need to have more food security, they need to have access to education, they also need to have access to health care, and unfortunately we tend to focus rather on biodiversity issues and climate changes in general. So here the idea would be to focus on the human aspects of the real victims of climate changes and how we could support them in order by capacity building and financial support in general. I think that the time allocated is very short, but I will be very happy to develop it further with you during breaks. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much.
Mohamed Senouri, directeur exécutif partenariat régional pour la conservation marine et côtière au Sénégal. Mr. Senouri est titulaire d'un doctorat en sciences de la terre et también d'un doctorat d'environnement côtier. Il a commencé comme chercheur à l'université. Chercheur, merci. Et depuis, il a travaillé dans l'administration maritime ou de même projets et programmes de recherche et conservation. Please, the floor is yours.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies for not being with you. I will try nonetheless to contribute quickly to share our experience in West Africa as part of the action and responses for a blue economy. We are all aware how important the ocean is. Our economies are still weak, and we know that our ocean is confronted to important challenges: degradation of the environment, drop in biodiversity. All this means we are confronted to serious challenges, which is why in West Africa we have gathered to discuss blue economy and created in the noughties a regional initiative for the preservation of a marine and coastal environment, and has now become a crucial partner in the conservation efforts. We focus on conservation, but we do focus on the reasoned use of resources. This partnership revolves around a coalition of actors, including 80 members from 7 countries, from Mauritania to Sierra Leone, and it gathers different stakeholders, and this is the key innovation, as we are not confined to historic approaches, but we also include civil society actors, research and academics, as we are an organization which gathers multiple institutions, and we are gathered in 5 colleges, the one for international NGOs, one for national NGOs, one for academics, and one for fishermen or fishing people. These different actors gather every 2 years. You have 50 seconds left to discuss. And in each of the capitals, we will be at our 11th edition next year. It's like a like a mini Blue Economy Summit. We've been hosting them since 2004, and in Guinea-Bissau we'll have the 11th, which groups 400 stakeholders, including ministers, donors, experts, and the purpose of this forum is to promote solutions aiming to preserve marine and coastal environments, and to take on board all the specialty of each stakeholder, providing government actors with an opportunity to present their actors, as well as and provide civil society an opportunity for dialogue between civil society and the government. And we has met with much success, and which has led to the creation of 27 protected marine areas and PMA zones. Thank you very much. And we have participated in the elaboration of protocols and strengthened the collaboration and strengthened countries' littoral rights. And we have also built capacity across different stakeholders, and we've conducted also advocacy. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you. And congratulations for everything you've done and your participation to this session now. We will now conclude with Mr. Pen from the coast of West Africa. You are ex-MP, specialized in You've also written extensively on governance and the transformation of the state to discuss the proper management of marine resources and the ocean. Mr. Marie Le Pen, Head of Cabinet of the High Council for the Sea of Togo. Are you there? Otherwise, we will go back to the Comores, of the Comores back. So, it's 12 o'clock. We will now give back the floor. We've managed to make up the half hour that we had lost this before, but to keep this interactive, we wanted to catalog those initiatives which were there, but maybe we could respond to two questions from the audience before we go to the next session. Patricia, Ricard, would you like to add something? Well, thank you very much. Well, I'd like to comment on everything that's been said this morning, and looking at the recurring trends, maybe the courage to look again at initiatives that date back to 10, 15 years old, which did not respond to the modern or contemporary definition of sustainability, the road to hell being paved with good intentions. In particular, aquaculture today has a bad effect on fish stock because of the growing demand of fish meal. So we have found a solution that we believe will contribute to a strengthen. We thought we were strengthening food security, but in fact we created a problem, and I think we have to be courageous enough to look back at these programs and improve certain decisions that were made in the context they were made in, but could probably be revisited. I would also like to pay homage to the exchange of data, is specifically given its high quality. When I see the diversity of points of view gathered here or in Bizerte, I think maybe we could have a website for the information sheet that could provide everybody with an opportunity to provide their best practices and alerts saying, as it would be too difficult for each of us to conduct this monitoring by itself, but we could have an interactive Dropbox with an alert system. I think the maturity amongst the participants is there. We all understand what's at stake. I really like this idea of looking at the land from the sea, and that we have a maturity of very mature community, and thank you, Mr. Thompson, for giving birth to it. And I think there is a race between the fluidity of information. 3 minutes is great, but resuming everything in 90 seconds is very clear. So maybe 3 minutes for the keywords that we could have on this website hosted or shared by La Saison Bleue. I think we can win this race if we boost our agility and our sharing. Thank you to all. Mr. Lamy, Your Excellency Ambassador, I am delighted to see the energy and enthusiasm in this Blue Africa Summit, which gives me hope, renewed hope. Thank you very much. I would like to rise to the challenge of this website and this new dynamic that we will all share together. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you all for this fantastic session. We will now move on. Our witnesses, which are very dear to our ambassador, Mr. Poivre d'Arvor. We might just change the format and ask those who will bear testimony for us and to join me to complete today's efforts. Rim Mena.
Organize un carré. Then Vincent Doumezel. Where is Vincent? He's here, yeah. Yeah. With a chair for you. Thomas Bernard, if you want to join us. I don't know if Thomas is here. If somebody can ask him to come back. Mamadou Sidibé, please. If you want to take a chair. There are some chairs you can take here in the side. And Bronson Skinner as well from Ghana. If Bronson is here, yeah. Excellent. If somebody can ask Thomas to come back, that would be excellent. Voilà. Voilà un carré. Je sais pas, I think Malak Al-Kaoud is there or not from Saudi Arabia? If not, we will ask him perhaps to... No, it's Malak? Oh yeah, great. There's some room spare here.
Thomas, tu es appelé aussi, Thomas Bernard. Tu es appelé sur scène avec ta chaise.
Please join us, Thomas.
Qu'une femme remplace un homme.
We have a great item of news, is that we have a lady replacing a man.
Barka, je suis avec l'équipe de l'UICN.
Good afternoon, my name is Malak Al-Kaoud. So, you can't read your papers even if you brought your computers. Please be convincing and imagine that you are young people who are trying to convince people of the validity of your point of view, and you explain to us what you would like to see achieved within the next 5 years through the UN system, through Europe, across the African continent, what needs to be changed? And given that you are younger than at least the gentleman speaking to you, what would you like to see realized?
Vous avez même le droit de vous lever.
And you can also stand up.
Wonderful. No one told me to prepare a dance. First of all, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here today. My name is Riman Maalla, and I am from Bahrain. I'm not very familiar if everyone... I am loud by nature. Bahrain is actually the third smallest nation in Asia. So we're quite tiny. And we are located in the hottest sea on the planet. So we're not only tiny, but we're actually hot, you know? It's quite crazy. And the thing is, like many countries around the world, we are very, very vulnerable to climate change impacts. And based on the University of Notre Dame's ranking, we've been ranked as one of the most climate vulnerable amongst the Arab states. When I first started as a, shall we say, early career scientist, and I came in, the first thing was, oh, there are all of these capacity building programs that I have to attend because they're going to give me all the skills that I can pour into the country, which is very exciting, right? Like you get to go to places, you know, meet people, be given skills. And then I'm a coral reef scientist, so I do the scientific diving and collect ecological data, and suddenly there's a project that comes and goes, the reef is dead, we've used AI because it's all about innovation, and you know, people want land, we don't have enough space, we're just going to reclaim that area. And I'm like, hold on, we did talk about innovation, but let's kind of revisit the whole definition of innovation. And also, what happened to the whole thing of let's channel that wisdom of our ancestors and marry it with science. And there seems to be a huge gap between that marriage, or that relationship has a very big issue, to be honest, in my personal view. So we talk about, you know, the triangle that Ashok this morning spoke about, which I really love. You know, the whole thing about science is in the heart, and then you have the finance, and in the end, you look at the governance. And science and governance are very much interlinked because a lot of the decisions that are made are based on, well, we hope that they're based on informed, you know, decisions based on scientific data. I'll just give you a little two points or personal experience points that I have encountered through my work. The first thing was we were told that part of this innovative way of monitoring, for example, coral reefs, which act as natural barriers to island nations like Bahrain. And when we get these IA-generated programs, they're usually designed by other countries that are very much advanced in their science, which is amazing. And it really gives us like a shorter way of getting to where we want to get to. But then AI is basing its analysis on the data given to it. But when our coral look different than the coral that live everywhere else, AI defines it as dead. And so it says 0% coral. And then I have all of these Bahrainis who go on vacation, for example, and they go to the Red Sea because it's a very popular holiday destination to most Bahrainis, and they go, we saw the amazing coral reefs on Earth, and now I see stones. And I'm like, that's not stones, sweetie. That is coral. And you are in the hottest sea on the planet. How did you expect the coral that is living in cooler waters to look exactly like coral living in the hottest sea on the planet? The fact that our reefs are living at temperatures that are 38 degrees, and that's what I work in throughout the summer. I dive in waters that are 38 degrees, and then I have to get a cooler so I can put cold water on my head so I can cool myself when it's already 48 degrees at the atmosphere. And then I'm told to work harder, you know? And then our corals are told to work harder. But AI then tells our governmental entities that everything is dead. And I'm like, well, I'm out there working, and I'm definitely alive, as you can see. Then my corals are also alive, as you will see if you just change your lenses. So the point being is we need to take the global science and fit it with the local science so that then we have chapters that are operational. So that's point one. And point two, I will be brief and I'm aware of time, is the whole world is looking at coral reefs, for example. It's all about bleaching, right? I'm sure you've heard in 2016, the Godzilla bleaching event, you know. It's killed corals around the world, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. But a lot of people forget about sea level rise. Why? Because most people always think about corals and them bleaching, but nobody thinks about corals and them drowning, because it makes no sense, right? But actually, if corals can't keep up their vertical expansion, they will drown. And then what happens in our nature-based solutions when it comes to protecting the islands? And that's the question I'm just going to leave you with so you can think about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Wim. Will Amela, CEO and Scientific Marine Watch for la recherche and l'éducation en matière d'environnement by Rhine. So we will ask your neighbor, Vincent Dumézel, who is totally French, who is going to speak in English, with the director of the Agroalimentaire Foundation at the Lloyd's Register, and also advisor for the ocean at the Mondial Global Pact UN.
Yeah, thank you. I will go on stage because I have something for the stage. Okay, so I will go straight to the point, and it's obvious for everyone that we need something to change. We are facing a climate and environmental crisis, a climate crisis, a social crisis, and a food crisis. We need a new solution. We need something actionable. We need to do something. We need a revolution, a civilizational revolution. Typically, 12,000 years ago, we moved away from prehistory, building a new world. We moved into civilization, but that was on land only. We are yet to enter the ocean civilization. We have to become civilized with the ocean. And how did we get civilized with the land? We started to cultivate the land. We need to cultivate the ocean. And that's how we will build a brave new world. So basically, if we want to repair the ocean instead of destroying them, seaweed, the lowest trophic levels, where everything starts, is the best place to go. So, and the idea is that seaweed, first of all, it's not something new. It's already there. 36 million tons of seaweed are cultivated in Asia, and that's billion euros. So there already is. We may wonder why only one region in the world knows how to cultivate a resource that does not need land, does not need pesticide, does not need to be fed, and guess what? Seaweed does not need to be watered. So really cool. Seaweed doesn't mean much. It's a very, very wide range of organisms, the oldest one in the world. I mean, it all started with algae. We are all descendants of blue algae here. Okay, we were floating in the ocean 4 billion years ago, and now we are what we are. Seaweed, as a multicellular organism, they started to live about 1 billion years ago, the green and the red. The green moved on land 500 million years ago. Only. And they gave birth to the entire vegetation that you see around you. So each tree that you see here is a descendant from seaweed. A green seaweed is more related, genetically speaking, to a tree or to an oak tree or to a strawberry than it is to a green seaweed, to a red seaweed. The difference between a red seaweed and a green seaweed is bigger than the difference between an elephant and a fungi. So that's a lot of biodiversity, which means a lot of potential. First and foremost, we need to feed the world using seaweed. Today, the ocean covers 70% of the planet and contribute to only 2% of our food, calorie speaking. So we need to feed the world with seaweed, notably. It's done in Japan, where they experience very, very substantial health benefit. Japanese people have the longest life expectancy. They have the lowest level of cancer, diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. Seaweed is antifungal, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, and it's the best prebiotic we can get for our microbiome. If it's good for human beings, it's good for animal as well. It makes sense for everyone, I think, that we start using local seaweed rich in protein to feed our fishes in aquaculture instead of soy meal that are deforesting the Amazon forest and that are GMO that are traveling all across the world. So let's start to feed our animal with seaweed. It will have a lot of benefit for animal feed as well from land, boosting the immune system, improving animal welfare, and cutting by large the emission. The biggest potential for seaweed may well be to create a link between the ocean and the land. There will be no regenerative agriculture. There will be no circular economy if we do not take into consideration 2/3 of our ecosystem, the ocean. So if we want to recover all the phosphate that end up in the ocean, the EU by itself, they dump 5.5 million tons of nitrogen everywhere, every year in the ocean. 5.5 million tons of nitrogen that are lost forever. I mean, if we use seaweed to recover this nitrogen, to recover this phosphate, to recover all these nutrients, then we can move them back on land, use them as natural organic biostimulants to support our agriculture. Seaweed also has a magic trick. It can replace plastic. And you may think, okay, it's not true, but here I have some seaweed made, some plastic made from seaweed. It's actually compostable, biodegradable, and edible. I don't have time to do it, but I can do it tonight. It can support biodiversity. It can, and we need to support it because seaweed are disappearing right now because they are victims of the climate change. So there's a fire below water, and no one cares because we cannot see that. Seaweed also contribute to mitigate climate change. Seaweed grows up to 40 centimeters a day to reach up to 60 meters high. So these are real forests that are sequestering much more carbon than any tropical forest on land. And last but certainly not least, because you don't need a revolution without tackling social injustice, seaweed can help to provide source of revenue and jobs to coastal communities, notably to women in Africa, as it is the case in Zanzibar already, in the very place where fishing resources will disappear, and we all know that. So once again, it's a revolution, it's ticking all the boxes. Seaweed may well be the greatest untapped resource we have on this planet, and it's time to activate this. In order to do that, we have created at the UN level a global coalition of seaweed stakeholders that is now gathering 1,200 stakeholders from the seaweed and industry. And we are trying to be the voice, and we are also funding different projects all over the world in order to support innovation in this seaweed world. But the biggest need we have is from all of you. We need you all to activate this revolution in your daily life, starting to eat seaweed. You may well say, well, seaweed is no good. Well, I invite you to eat a raw potato or raw cocoa bean. It's no good. Chips and chocolate are delicious. We need to learn how to cook seaweed, more importantly. And then we need to activate that in our professional life as well. I mean, I have no activity, I have no business into seaweed. I'm not promoting seaweed for my own sake. I'm just the father of 3 kids, and I'm actually totally fed up to feed the next generation, your kids, my kids, with fears and drama. Our responsibility is to feed them with hopes and optimism. Seaweed is a great source of hope. We don't want them to be remembered as the climate generation lost. They need to be remembered, and they will be, as the first generation on this planet that managed to feed the entire world, cultivating the ocean, feed the entire world for the first time in the history while mitigating climate change, restoring biodiversity, and alleviating poverty. Our kids may be remembered for this, but they will need our help. So for all of you here, the seaweed revolution has to start here and today. Thank you very much for them.
Thank you. Merci, Vincent.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, Malak El-Kaoud to speak from the stage. Malak, you are member and head of the Waves Initiative in Saudi Arabia.
Hello, I wanted to thank the organizers for convening us all here for this very important summit. I'm here to tell you about WAVE, which I'm a partnership and engagement managers at. We're a newly launched initiative, October 25th, not even a month old, led by Her Royal Highness Princess Rima Bandar Al Saud, the Saudi ambassador to the United States of America. WAVE is part of a wider portfolio of endeavors that Princess Rima and her team designed and scaled over the last decade to raise global awareness about our interconnected well-being. WAVE is a collective action platform striving towards the ambitious yet essential and attainable goal of ocean regeneration within a human generation. WAVE is powered by the Future Investment Initiative, a global nonprofit foundation driven by data with an investment arm and one agenda: impact on humanity. It has been referred to as the Davos of the desert. WAVE's mission is to engage diverse stakeholders across geographies, industries, and sectors, harnessing their collective energy to drive a global wave of regenerative ocean action. We're guided by expertise of a scientific and engagement council that includes Alexandra Cousteau as our chief navigator, award-winning ocean restoration advocate, granddaughter of Jacques Cousteau, Professor Carlos Duarte as our chief scientist, a distinguished aquatic ecologist and global leader in multiple branches of biological oceanography and marine ecology. His Royal Highness Prince Sultan Al Saud, chief activator, chairman of the Saudi Water Sports and Diving Federation. WAVE will activate unique and diverse partnerships and coordinate efforts to accelerate ocean regeneration and provide access to resources to generate actionable ocean insights, including programs such as citizen science, hackathons, open data platform. We'll also spark global awareness and engagement, including a global year-long awareness campaign and a week-long campaign called Blue Armada Week, where we'll deploy activities for coastal cleanups. Also catalyzing blue innovation through accelerating the deployment and adoption of disruptive blue tech solutions, supporting founders through mentorship, incubation, access to funding, as well as catalyzing and bridging innovation ecosystems. I wanted to note that we are soon launching a new venture competition for ocean regeneration with our partner Autonomous. I invite you all to follow us on our social channels for more information about the launch. We're also working on an initiative to advance thought leadership. And before we end, I wanted to, before I play a short video for you about our launch, I wanted to include by saying the journey towards ocean regeneration is not one we can achieve alone. Our discussion today merely scratches the surface of what's possible. There's so much more to explore and achieve, and I invite you all to reach out to further discuss how we can partner or collaborate and innovate together. And if you can now play the video, please.
Oui, voilà. Thank you so much, Malak. Now I'm very happy to welcome from Ghana an executive producer of the Foundation OR.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. Though I come with my cowboy boots and American accent, we are in fact at the OR Foundation based in Accra, Ghana, where we operate at the intersection of environmental justice, education, and fashion innovation. We work in solidarity with Kantamanto secondhand clothing market, the largest secondhand clothing market in the world, in order to catalyze a justice-led circular economy. Now, we could throw around the investment buzzwords all day, but I did not spend my carbon budget to come here to talk about that. I came to talk about the word intersection. We are at an intersection. Right now, we have a choice. That is literally the name of my organization, the OR Foundation. We can choose to proceed down the road that we have been traveling on, maybe paving it with marginally less bad materials, or we can chart a different course. We need to chart a different course, and this is why. Many of you may have seen some of the documentaries that we have informed as an organization showing the impacts of the global secondhand trade in Ghana, where 15 million cast-off items of clothes enter the country from around the world every week. The meter-deep piles of clothes on the beach and in the lagoon. Well, it's not our work to document the problem, though it has been shown. We work to identify and manifest alternatives and solutions. So 2 years ago, we began to study, an intensive study, to quantify and deeply understand the ecological impact of fashion's waste crisis in order to develop regenerative pathways and clear policy. My colleague Joe, where is Joe? Hi, Joe. I encourage everybody to go introduce themselves to Joe. My colleague Joe and his team have collected over the past 2 years thousands of water and air samples along Accra's Korle Lagoon, along 7 kilometers of Accra's beaches, and down 450 kilometers of Ghana's largest internal waterway, the Volta River system, during our historic swim down the river. We are now, next week, we hope, actually launching our solar-powered research vessel to go off the coast in order to map the spread of this pollution and its impact out to sea. And what we see here in this photo is 50 milliliters of water from Accra's Korle Lagoon, imaged with UV fluorescence so that we can see the stuff that is not visible to the naked eye. And the hundreds of microfibers and microplastics we see here are the consequence of overproduction. And they have widespread implications, from heavy metal absorption into the microfibers that create these toxic bullets going out, getting into the fish, getting into our bodies, as we've heard our colleagues speak to the impact of that. The anoxification of the waterway, the depletion of oxygen, and thereby the greenhouse gas emissions when water is too polluted to support oxygen-based life. What we've also seen through our research is that nature is cleaning itself up. We right now have early stage proof of the microbial systems in the Korle Lagoon, where this pollution is such a mess, actually evolving to eat these microplastics and microfibers. And we as an organization are using this evolution to create community-scale bioreactors to clean up the mess made by an industry of Wild West overproduction. Last month, we removed 30 tons of waste from the beach and the lagoon. This is an effort that is multiplied by the great work of colleagues in the space on the ground, such as Plastic Punch, who you'll hear from later this afternoon after lunch. And our hope is that this time next year, we can take that waste, put it into our bioreactor system, and get useful, safe, compost-like substrates to support bioremediation, to clean up the mess that's been made. Now, these efforts don't take shape in a vacuum. Specifically, we need policy alignment to ensure that only environmentally compatible materials are produced and that production volumes are reined back in within planetary boundaries, to ensure that financing instruments actually support the work on the ground with the urgency that is necessary. My colleague Clemence, who is back there, I encourage you all to introduce yourselves. She she coordinates our advocacy efforts in the EU, and she can explain in more detail the specifics of the globally accountable EPR policies we are calling for to bring shark's teeth into the regulation, to make sure that the price of pollution is paid in dollars, not in cents, in order to force brands to take responsibility for such pollutions, changing their business model by embedding the price of cleaning up the mess they have made into the products that they are selling. Yesterday morning, I had the great pleasure of swimming in the beautiful pool here. At the same time, one of my colleagues in Accra was taking water samples where the Korle Lagoon meets the ocean. And we saw in those water samples that the dissolved oxygen rate was 1.9%. That is essentially nothing. Healthy water is 80%. All right? At the end of the line, we can smell the disaster burning in the air. We can see the methane bubbles in what was once water, but what is now toxic. The time we have to fix this is measured in months, not in years. So the investment buzzwords we need to talk about, sure, they include circularity, but they also include oxygenation, they include bioremediation, and they include the education to hold ourselves accountable to our collective future, our collective today, right now. This is the intersection where we find ourselves. The choice is quite clear, and I thank you for taking it.
I will ask now Mamadou Sidibé, qui est le conservateur des parcs nationaux protégés aussi.
Who is from Senegal? Mamadou Sidibé, the floor is yours, sir. Mamadou Sidibé, National Parks Conservator, Director of Community Marine Protected Areas, Senegal. I have a question, Mamadou. Is this the uniform of the conservatory? Please, how many are you in your team of conservation? We are about 200 agents. We are about 200 agents. So I saw your card a while ago. Did you change it? Yeah. So please go ahead with the heart. It's even better than the computer. No problem. Okay, thank you. I'm delighted and honored to take part in today's summit, the Blue Africa Summit. And I'm delighted that it's been organized in Morocco. I'm also delighted that today, with regards to what we discovered last February during the Global Congress on Marine Protection, Senegal received the torch to organize the 6th Global Congress for Marine Protection, and it is the first time it's been held in Africa, and we have the opportunity to take part in the first time in Africa, to take part in the Blue Africa Summit or the African Ocean Summit. So it means that Africa is actually present in regards to oceans. It is important for us, like I was saying, that from the first experience today, we all can put in efforts to organize this first global African conference for oceans. You know that oceans constitute 70% of our planet, and if 70% of our planet, what was said about this? We decided to go for the 30-30 objective. That is 30% of these oceans it will still be left with 70% that would not be protected yet, or which would not be actually governed. What should we do? Today, we should think of governance of our oceans. And that is the revelation for the future impact. In Senegal, and we organized this on behalf of the Africa. It is actually a partnership and also the protection of the biodiversity and also global climate. And this partnership must be developed. We started today in Morocco, and we should be able to continue in Senegal in 2024. It's important. The story of Senegal. Why is it important? Because this is being done with the contribution of the different networks. The networks are extremely important to this initiative, because if we can talk about ocean governance, if we can talk about connectivity between oceans, between Africa and the others, is because behind the scenes there are men and women who have created networks to allow each other to exchange with each other and share experiences. And that is what we are seeing today. And this big global framework that allows us to actually meet and talk about the crucial and fundamental elements of development, especially with regards to networking. The second aspect is the important preparation. So the fact to develop in cooperation for a just and equitable approach, which would also be efficient for actions for oceans with different communities. Today, we can see communities that have the tendency of, we only consider them as beneficiaries, but I'd like to tell you that the communities are not beneficiaries. The first managers of these oceans are the communities. If we are talking about oceans, it's because the communities have been pushed back as the sea level keeps rising, and they have actually done their best to preserve these oceans. So the different tributaries of these resources, and when we lose these resources, we're going to lose these communities. That is why the communities fought to actually preserve these marine resources. It is important to consider the communities as the real managers of these oceans and actually place them at the heart of discussion, and it's really important. So the marine zones protected, the protection of these marine hemispheres or spheres is really important for participative and inclusive development and governance. We cannot actually talk about protecting them, because these are a laboratory, not only a scientific laboratory, but also a socio-economic laboratory for economic development. And the other part, which is with regards to the example of Senegal, like my colleague told me, communal governance is an indispensable means of actually managing this biodiversity and this other aspect that you should develop entirely. Like I told you a while ago, with Morocco, we are developing cooperation, bilateral cooperation between Senegal and Morocco with regards to higher education, research, and also with regards to project development for the conservation of our oceans. And it's really important good for these two countries to actually work for this. And also, all of us constitute a network for the Blue Belt. And if there's no Blue Belt, we are not going to have any oceans. Thank you. Thank you, Mamadou Sidibé from Senegal. We will call on our friend from Comoro Islands, who wasn't here a while ago when he needed to intervene. So please come, sir. So can you please talk to us about Comoro Islands? Okay. Thank you. I'll talk to you a bit about Comoro Islands because, sorry for my accent. So I'm going to share my experience with you with regards to the fishing in Comoro. So, you know, Comoro Islands, we are a coastal state, and we are also have ports. So internationally, we actually play a role. So we signed an agreement with a partner based in Dubai that actually registered boats or ships in the name of the Comorian state. So they took registered fishing boats that actually were fishing in the Gulf of Guinea, and Comoro Islands received a red card from the European Union. So we are actually negotiating to lift these sanctions. With regards to best governance practice, as the Director General of the Maritime Affairs Directorate in Comoros, we put in place a national policy with regards to the maritime security, and we benefited from about 30% of petroleum products that actually pass through the Comoro Islands coast towards other islands. So it is a risk with regards to marine pollution. That is why we recently integrated during a regional conference on science, we integrated a new parameter within the framework of the blue economy, and it was organized by this National Center for Scientific Research and also oceanographic research, and this is an entity that has an impact on the actions of the state on the oceans in Comoros. So this actually allowed to actually create awareness amongst the Comoro women that actually are implied in the protection of mangroves and also protected marine spheres. So we have awareness campaigns where we have periods where people should not go to actually go for fishing. So it is really important, and it's from these months that we actually authorize the fisher folk to go and fish, and the women are really implied in these aspects, and this made it in such a way that the government took a decision with regards to the restricting the importation of plastic sachet, which have a negative effect on the marine pollution. So we have leadership within the region for the promotion and protection of the blue economy within the ecosystem, as well as with regards to sustainable tourism, and also with regards to the protection of the marine zone with the implementation of the national plan on the fight against hydrocarbon pollution. So we had a categorical refusal that we had lobbying that during a maritime security meeting, this failed. So this was an important project that was financed by the World Bank with regards to the implementation of a maritime route from the Mozambique Canal to be able to follow the petroleum products that actually send these products to the Middle East. So we have a petroleum vessel that actually sank. So we needed to put in place regional efforts to be able to make available all the different equipment. So science is art, environment. These are important levers for a country like Comoro Islands. So this is the experience that I have to share with you. So if there are any questions, I will be ready to respond. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Comores, et félicitations pour votre présidence.
And congratulations for the presidency of the AU. Last testimony, not the least, Barsha Mosai, originated Blue Economy Manager in Louisiane. Barsha. Do you know that when you plug in your laptop, we don't see you anymore? Yeah, it's Barca ou Baraka, en fait.
C'est vrai que vous n'écrivez pas très bien.
C'est vrai.
It is true that I couldn't read it properly.
Because I'm more comfortable in English. And it makes me super happy that this session started with an island woman, Reem, and it's going to end with an island woman. So yeah, we're planning to take over the world. And also thank you so much to the tech team that has valiantly tried to display the presentation and hopefully the video. We'll go through the slides like 20 seconds each slide and keep it super fast. I'm here to present on the Great Blue Wall Initiative, which is technically the fastest growing ocean movement initiative, hope in Africa as of now. Next slide, please. And the reason behind the Great Blue Wall, if we could have the next slide. Okay, I'll keep talking until then. Oh, what's happening here? Sorry. Technology. Ah, c'est celui-là. Bon. Oh, pardon. Sorry. The reason behind the Great Blue Wall is the fact that we have 3 interconnected crises that are hitting us on the head right now. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these crises because we all know what they are, and talking in a room like this means basically preaching to the audience. But the economic crisis, the biodiversity crisis, and the climate crisis are particularly affecting Africa, and especially so since we consider that this is a young continent. The majority of youth population are on this continent, so if we don't take care of this now, we are basically condemning whole generations to live with declining life choices. In fact, when I and many of the people in this room emerged into the job markets, we basically faced declining life opportunities. And this is something that we have to bear in mind, that the event horizon of the next generations is looking extremely bleak, which will cascade into other crises unless we take care of that. Sorry, I'm not very well versed with this. So bearing that in mind, bearing the impacts of the triple crisis on the African continent, we realize that at the same time, there's also a unifying solution, which is our ocean. On one hand, our oceans are facing these unprecedented impacts, and one of the most staggering figures that I came across, and it's an outdated figure, is that only 3% of the ocean has remained unaffected by human activity. This is in the latest IPBES report, and this was a 2014 figure. So by now we can assume that all of the ocean is impacted by human activity. So I would go so far as to say that it's not so much our ocean that needs us, but we need our ocean. So what the Great Blue Wall is trying to achieve is to bring these different components together to build a nature-positive world by 2030. Because very often we're working in silos, and we see that different realms of ocean action don't necessarily correspond together. So trying to bring ocean health, ocean finance, ocean science together is really what will lead us to that singularity and a movement that will actually help us develop a regenerative blue economy that benefits the African continent. And why are we talking about this framework with people and nature at the center? This, again, is a scenario that was put forward by various eminent scientists, including Dr. David Opora, which shows that in certain scenarios, if we focus only on current conservation trajectories, we will fall very short. So it's extremely important to put people right at the heart of the solution. And given the scale of the problem, given the generational drama that is about to hit us very hard, the scale of our response is extremely important. That means that we cannot afford to work piecemeal, so we need to consider a response that is as vast as the ocean that we're dealing with. The speed also matters. That picture is of the climate clock in New York. And well, 6 years is not a lot. In fact, we won't even have 2 World Cups in 6 years. So basically before the 2030 World Cup, we will have hit a serious climate crisis. So what we're planning to do is really leverage political momentum, which is extremely needed, especially now. We really need leaders to step up, and we need the financial resources, which we know are available. So our response is the Great Blue Wall, and I don't know if at this stage our tech wizards are able to show the video on the Great Blue Wall.
Are we going to have a video?
Yeah, just a very, very short 1.5 minute video.
Have you got the video? Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that was also a small plug for the work that Alfredo is doing and the Friends of Ocean Action and Uplink, which are really fantastic initiatives and movements. I'll continue extremely fast to complete the rest of the presentation. So essentially the aim is that by 2030 to establish a connected network of regenerative seascapes. And at the moment, it's being piloted across the Western Indian Ocean region. And the idea is not just to have a set of isolated marine protected areas. We are very deliberate in using the word seascape because it includes people, again, at the heart. And the thinking behind this is that, again, as I mentioned, if no part of the ocean has remained untouched by human activity, then it makes sense to ensure that those human activities are actually sustainable and regenerative. So with the regional scope, these are some of the priority seascapes that we have identified, including Comoros. Our last speaker mentioned the Union of Comoros, and these would be connected by a living belt of corals, seagrass, mangroves, and people. And these are the three pillars of the Great Blue Wall. So very quickly, the first pillar is essentially to achieve and support the countries in the Great Blue Wall to meet the 30 by 30 target and beyond. Also to achieve net gain critical blue ecosystems to capture carbon, including through seagrass, mangroves, and other aspects of the living wall that I described. And the third is to develop a regenerative blue economy, which seeks to empower local communities and the countries participating in the Great Blue Wall with job creation, and also moving the paradigm away from what has been an extractive model of blue economy, a low revenue, I would say, extractive model of blue economy, towards a more regenerative, knowledge-driven one that is actually fit for purpose for the year that we live in. I don't think we'll have time to go into all of these details, but I'll be happy to share the presentation afterwards. So these are a little bit our ambitious goals. 2 million square kilometers protected in the Western Indian Ocean region through LMMAs, MPAs, and other conservation measures, as well as empowering local stakeholders. And we have a very strong focus on women who basically get stuff done. The living blue wall that I mentioned, with all the different ecological components that are extremely rich in the Western Indian Ocean region, that has actually been valued at conservatively at around $333.1 billion in terms of ocean assets. So you can see why it's worth protecting. And the regenerative blue economy, which essentially seeks to mobilize economic actors and just change the paradigm altogether. And the Blue Nature Program, so these are some of the components that feed into the Great Blue Wall. So it's not just an aspiration, it's actually taking place. Different bits of the puzzle are starting to fall into place through all of these actions. Again, I will share this presentation with you so that you can go through it at your own time and explore some of these different activities and also how you can support them. The Blue People Program, which is something that I'm personally super passionate about, looks at blue entrepreneurship and creating the regenerative blue economy through one bit at a time. And why this is extremely interesting is because Africa is also the continent that has the most entrepreneurial activity, also driven very much by women. So it makes sense to marry the two here. And finally, the Blue Partnerships Program, because partnerships are at the heart of what we do. And again, with your indulgence, I'd really like to show another small video, if our tech wizards
The
can
last
do that.
one.
It's the last one, I promise.
Promise?
It's
Okay.
very good.
And then?
It's very good.
Yeah. Thank you. A video, the last one.
That's it, and I have just two last slides, just very quickly. So this, in a nutshell, is the Great Blue Wall, and as I mentioned, the Great Blue Wall is about aggregating these small actions, but also the scale and the speed and leveraging political impact. And I would just like to highlight, again, that in Comoros, we had the Blue Future Conference, whereby we also paved the way to launch the a high-level panel on a regenerative blue economy, whereby the African continent really can assert itself, its priorities, and change the paradigm. So the Great Blue Wall, we invite you to join us, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Baraka. Baraka, we had the chance to meet you and to have you on floor, and I would like you to applaud all our guests, young leaders. Oh, you can stand up now. Young leaders now. Thank you so much for your testimonials. 10 seconds from Said Salim from your seat. You want to thank somebody?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me this opportunity to thank someone here with us who has done a lot for Comoros. I'm talking about Professor Dr. Mustafa Zarwan. And I will inform you that Comoros are an African country, but at the same time an Arab country. So Comoros had mestizos, Yemenites, who got married with some Bantus. And from the affectation of Professor Zabak on behalf of ISESCO, who did important researches on the topic, making that Comoros were considered as an Arab country and member of the Arab League. So I see this opportunity to ask my colleagues to put their hands together for Professor Azabak, who is an emeritus professor in our university. And if President Azali, very much committed on ocean issues, wants to say hi anytime, he's welcome. I think he's not far away from here. Now, let me ask you to spend a few extra minutes to conclude these talks by our friend Peter Thompson, Special Envoy Special of UN. He will try to summarize what we have said here and his vision, the vision of the UN about this first morning of the Blue Africa Summit. Peter, you have the floor.
Look, just to sum up what we've heard this morning, I think you can see the great value of the Blue Africa Summit, and this being the first edition and rolling on to many more. The issues that we need to cover, of course, are as vast as the ocean itself, and some of them we haven't touched on, but I love Patricia's idea about getting a website up for Blue Africa Summit so that we can all contribute to that. And I do think that if we are going to have that website, that it should be linked to the UN Ocean Conference website, which is run out of DESA in New York. So make that linkage and your views will get through. I loved what Pierre was saying about the digital twins. Those of you who are not familiar with this concept, I assure you it's going to make a difference to humanity's relationship with the ocean. So those that are not familiar with digital twins, please learn about it. I was at the Digital Twins Summit in Xiamen, China last week, and which was a follow-up from the first Digital Twins Summit in London last year that I was speaking at. And what is being offered by this digital twin of the ocean is going to be game-changing. So do get yourself familiar with that. Look, as I said, the subjects to be covered are as vast as the ocean itself. I mean, I'll give you two examples. Firstly, we haven't been talking about marine carbon dioxide removal. MCDR, it's geoengineering. Everybody hates that geoengineering word, you know, it's just, we get a gut reaction to it. But we have been geoengineering at a grand scale, and I'm talking about our greenhouse gas emissions, which are changing the climate of this planet. So IPCC says that we have to embrace CDR if we are going to stay somewhere between 1.5 and 2 degrees. If we don't embrace this, we're lost. You know, we're heading to 3 degrees. So we, in our corridor chats now and what remains this afternoon, I think, you know, we need to get this on the table. Dubai is coming. It's only 10 days away now, and it will be a major issue there. Marine CDR, such as capturing carbon from the atmosphere and burying it under the seafloor. This is already happening. It is going to happen in the future on a much grander scale. So we need to be aware of that. Think also about food. You know, we talk about food, we're talking about fish mainly, but 95% of the biomass of the ocean is microbial. It's not fish or whales or anything. It's microbial. So I was already talking to Vincent about plankton and this as a renewable food for humanity. But we're not getting into this kind of discussion in sufficient intensity. I'm not talking about at this meeting, I'm talking about globally. And we need to start thinking more broadly and bigger about these initiatives going forward. Look, it's such a great collection of people. I don't want to speak any more than to say, look, outside of this room, within this room, we've got so much to cover over the next 24 hours, and I really look forward to discussing some of these issues with you. Remember, these are not ordinary times. Secretary General of the United Nations says we have been at war with nature and it's time to make peace. Okay, with the ocean being 90% of the living space on the planet. That means making peace with the ocean. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Peter. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Here we go. Listen, it is 1:07. So it's lunchtime, and at 2:30 sharp, we'll meet again here for the last session of this Blue Africa Summit. I think that lunch is served next door, but I really count on you to be back at 2:30. You will see there's a beautiful program, a lot of presentations. Thanks to all of you who took the floor today. Thank you very much.